Good morning, everyone. We will start in a minute and we're just gathering. So just bear with us for a minute. Hemant, you want to start?
To start, Vikram? Oh, no, Hemant wants. Okay.
Yeah. Can you hear me properly?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes. Yeah. So, good morning, everyone. A very warm welcome to all participants. Myself, Hemant Mehta, think tank multidisciplinary global platform chapter leader, welcomes you all to Think Tank Global Conclave for India Growth Story and Meet. Series covering in detail management think tank, valuation think tank, IBC think tank, financial reporting think tank, RERA think tank, cooperative society think tank, FAFT, ISA think tank, IPO think tank, and capital market think tank. As a major part of think tank at the rate Vivek Patra, Vivek in Sanskrit means knowledge and wisdom. Patra is an innovative news updates containing slides on sharing latest development and real-life examples by CEO, CXO, CFO, specialists, and professionals with global experience. Today, we have Think Tank Multidisciplinary Global Platform special meeting for all stakeholders in finance, corporate affairs, industry, and profession. Think Tank has become in existence since a decade. Idea conceived somewhere in December 1991, in January 1991, to have conferences, conclave with CEO, CXO, CFO, panelists, and specialists, sharing experience and real-life examples. Our panelists are finance leaders working in reputed companies or profession since many years and have deep domain knowledge. In platform now, digital has got overwhelming response on digital mediums and expanding rapidly through LinkedIn, Facebook, etc. Our participants and experts have rich experience in industry and profession who have done CPA, CFA, ICWA, CFM, IIM, CA, CS, CMA, ISA, and BTech, IFRS, Masters, PhD, and sharing experience, knowledge, wisdom, spreading as a real reach out initiative globally. Our website, you can visit www.thinktank.co.in and due to overwhelming response to our annual report, corporate strategy and ESG, we have announced 6P awards and recognition. 6P stand for profit, people, professionals, promoters, and platform. For corporate annual reports, analysts, professional achievers, CEO, CXO, CFO, with a very respected jury with rich experience in interaction with holders and boards. This recognition and award would be announced with a rigorous process of scrutiny and choice and interaction with participants. As a participant are aware, recently we have launched a much awaited reference approximately titled as Think Tank @ Patra, India Growth Story. A comprehensive conference material compilation over 600 pages sharing experiences by CEO, CXO, CFO, specialists with latest development and series on blocking, regulatory fraud, financial reporting, INDES, IBC, taxation, digital capital market, technical analyst, ISA, bank audit, corporate affairs. It would be available for subscription, and any ethical contribution by well-wishers are welcome. We will also be covering important and latest development as suggested by many participants in coming weeks. Example, valuations and financial modeling, health is wealth, cybersecurity, blockchain, MSME, latest regulations, and development in various important professional bodies and institutions, etc. We request all all to subscribe to Think Tank YouTube channel for watching summits, conclave, webinars, and join, connect, and network on Think Tank webinars group on LinkedIn and pages, Telegram channel specially created on suggestion of many participants and analysts. We once again welcome all the members and panel. I especially thank my colleagues in the digital global team. I can name few of them. Is Anurag, Archana, Aspari, Anupam, Aditya, Ajay, Dushyant, then Mitesh, Mihir, Malvika, Manish, Nipun, Pramod, Praveen, Rakesh, Rucha, Pramod, R. Kanan, Santosh, Subrat, Snehal, Sandeep, Sanjiv, Umesh, Vijay, Vikas, Vikram, Yogesh, and others for regularly contributing to Think Tank. Today we have an excellent Think Tank multidisciplinary platform seminar. Eminent scholars and specialists sharing experiences and latest development. Let's have an interactive event. With this, I request Manoj to kindly hand over to you. Manoj ji.
Thank you very much, Hemant bhai. It's indeed a pleasure and privilege for me with all of you. And excellent topics for all industry, profession, India growth story. So many stalwarts with us today, sharing deep knowledge and experiences on vital topics in a highly interactive manner. Archana Moge, eminent banker, also award winner of professional institutes, member of business and industry, professional achiever, is here with us. She will moderate the session. Archana, welcome.
Thank you, Manoj.
Yeah, and we have excellent lineup of presenters who would be sharing their deep dive knowledge presentations, and many would share experiences in an interactive manner. Nilanjan, Paul is with us. A deep dive into various issues. Mr. Ramprasad from Bangalore, Nilanjan from Gurgaon. There are many from across India and abroad also. And we would, it's nice to see that we will discuss lots of global issues, lots of developments happening globally. We have seen yesterday big fluctuations in the Dow. Results of Amazon have come. Here also result season is on. Lots of developments in the corporate sector, industry, professional development. New system from 1st April for CARO has started. So deep insights, good to have you all and be with all of you. Over to you, Archana.
Yeah, thank you, Hemant ji, for the address. Thank you, Manoj ji. We can start with the presentations right away. So I invite Nilanjan to start with his presentation. Nilanjan?
Yeah, thank you, Archana.
Yeah, thank you.
And indeed a pleasure, as always, to interact with all the senior members of the professionals. And I thank you, Manoj, repeatedly for this opportunity to present my perspective and also learn from the views of other senior professionals. So I'll share my screen.
Yeah, just I would just like to add something over here.
Sure,
If there are any questions, we will take the questions at the end. But everyone is welcome to post their questions on chat while the presentation is going on, and at the end of the presentations, we will take the questions, and the forum will be open for discussion.
Sure. Yeah. So today, what we thought would be a very important area for seeking feedback or seeking views is the amendment that has been made in the regulatory framework of all the governing institutes which most of us would be belonging to, be it the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, the Institute of Cost Accountants of India, or the Institute of Company Secretary. So we will look at why there was a reason even for the regulator to think of making certain changes, and how these changes would affect us as an individual professional and also as corporates. What are those aspects that we should consider when we're engaging either with the members of these institutes or when we're engaging with the professional bodies at large? Okay, so that's what is the agenda that I have rolled out for the today's discussion. Now, this is just a snapshot of the platform. I think Manoj and Hemant spoke about that, so I will not repeat that point of view. From your speaker perspective, that's who I am. I am Nilanjan. I am a chartered accountant with around 15 years of experience in helping and dealing with various auditing and accounting related issues, including issues which is currently emerging from the new CARO 2020 or Schedule 3. I think certain disclaimers are also in order. I would like to highlight that the contents and discussions are the independent views of the professionals and are solely for knowledge sharing and deliberation on best practices for India growth stories. These are not the views of the platform or the institute or the organization the individual speakers are associated with. To reiterate, they are purely for educational purpose, and please consult your own advisors before you take any decisions on the matters that we are going to discuss today. Okay, so I thought it is better that we start with the journey of the new amendments. If you would see the main reasons why the regulator felt that there is a need to look at the framework of all these three institutes is there on the slide at the top. The regulator observed there are rising disciplinary cases. There are also a large pendency of cases with unreasonable high average disposal time. And the ministry also observed in certain cases the involvement of the professionals with various financial wrongdoings. So broadly, these are the top reasons why the ministry felt relook or the overall structure of the institutes are required. And if I can state for these for the sake of clarity, these changes are across the three institutes. It is not tilted towards a particular institute. The changes have been made uniform across the institutes. So if you would look at the journey of this particular amendment, so the Lok Sabha on December 2021, a bill was introduced to propose changes to the CA Act, CWA Act, and Company Secretary Act. It was within a very few days referred to the Standing Committee for wider discussion and consultation with various stakeholders. The Standing Committee then followed a consultative approach. It nominated a very esteemed list of members. We will see who those members were in the subsequent slides. They also sought views from the governing council or the leaders of those individual institute, and they also did a very wide global benchmarking, looking at global best practices. And by doing all this study, they came up with its report on March 2022. Okay. If you would look at the recommendations of the standing committee in general, the standing committee has generally endorsed the amendments which were there in the bill. There were certain suggestions, or there were certain additional aspects which the standing committee has requested the ministry to look at. But overall, on a nutshell, it supported the propositions in the bill. So again, after the bill was, after the report of these in the standing committee, the bill was passed by the Lok Sabha on March 2022, and subsequently by the Rajya Sabha in April 2022. After that, to get enacted, it was assented by the President of India around mid-April 2022. So net, that's what we can see right from December 2021 to April 22. We can see a sea of changes in the governing framework of our institutes. Okay, so that's what I thought, that even when we are discussing, let's see who were the members. So it had Shri Jayan Sinha as the chairperson of the standing committee. It had around 30 persons, including him, in the committee. So if you would see, there were very eminent persons. For example, Shri Ravi Shankar Prasad was there. If you would look closely, even Dr. Manmohan Singh was part of this committee. So it had quite an esteemed panel in that sense, and they had actually looked at all the aspects of the bill in a very critical way. Now, over the period, the standing committee had 3 meetings, ranging from February 2022 to March 2022, where they kind of concluded and deliberated on the proposed amendments. So what I thought, the way I will put up the aspects for discussion, we are covering the very key items which the standing committee has picked up. Okay, so we are not getting into each and every amendment, but yes, we are going to cover all the significant amendments which has now been made. So since the bill has already been assented by the President of India, I think it is safe to say that it is now an act. The changes to the overall regulatory framework has been made. However, the commencement date of these individual amendments would be notified in a due course. So net, even though the regulation has been amended, the act itself says that different dates will be finalized by the ministry for initiating the commencement of those amendments. So that's one area probably we would need to watch out to make those amendments effective. Okay, so moving to the first one, what the bill proposed is to have a coordination committee. So right now, the existing framework is that there is a very informal kind of a setup. If somebody wants to coordinate between 3 committees, let's say there has to be a common platform for sharing knowledge, or there is an aspect of capacity building across the 3 institutes. So from a function perspective, there might be some overlap, right, between one of the two institutes. So right now there was no proper framework terms of reference or the agenda of this coordination committee, but it somehow existed on an informal basis. Now, what the bill proposed is that there has to be a coordination committee that has to be set up. Okay. Now, it is a formalized setup. It is not an informal setup. The coordination committee will consist of the president, vice president, and secretary of the council of each of the institute for development and harmonization of respective professions. The committee would also be responsible for effective coordination of functions assigned to each institute, and most importantly, they should uphold the aspect of quality, improve academics, infrastructure with very big emphasis on research, align cross-disciplinary regulatory mechanisms, so on and so forth. So if I just take a pause here, if you would see, they are trying to actually have a very wide and a strong setup so that all these three institutes interact each other at a common platform, share knowledge for the overall growth, as well as learn from each other what could be done best for the respective institutes. As far as the period or the periodicity of meetings are concerned, the bill proposed that the meetings has to be held quarterly, and it will be chaired by the secretary to MCA. So these are the key proposals which the bill stated regarding the constitution of the coordination committee. So in the process of this discussion, obviously the standing committee took the feedback or perspective of the individual institutes. So if you would see on this slide, what ICAI felt that the constitution of the coordination committee would intrude the autonomy and hamper decision making. It also reiterated that there is already an existing non-standing committee which is covering all the three institutes, which in the view of the institute can be elevated to a higher level. It could be made to a standing committee wherein they can come together and resolve multidisciplinary issues. As for the other two institutes, the cost accountants as well as the company secretary, they did not object to this proposal. Now, the standing committee, other than asking for views of individual institute, it also sought views of MCA. And in this particular box on the right side, when I say standing committee observed, it means the views of the standing committee as well as the considerations that were important from the comments which the MCA also sent. So on an overall basis, what the committee observed that the intent of this of setting up the new coordination committee is to have a very strong mechanism for effective coordination. Right now, what the ministry felt is that these three institutes are working in silos. They are not coming together for benefiting the entire profession at large, and hence this coordination committee is at least an attempt to close this particular gap. It also felt that the existing non-standing committee is informal and is ineffective because there is no proper terms of reference, or there is no monitoring or a formalized setup to look at this particular aspect. The committee also reiterated that the coordination committee would act as an apex body for harmonization of regulation, effective professional development, and objective disciplinary oversight of three institutes, especially the fast emerging prospects of multidisciplinary firms and entities. So net it kind of stated that the objective is very clear, which is for effective coordination. The objective is not to intrude on on the autonomy or decision making of the individual institutes. They would have their own set of mechanism and framework to deal on their day-to-day related matters. Next, which I felt is an important topic, is the overhaul of the Board of Discipline and Disciplinary Committee. So as you would have noted in the previous slides where I have talked about the key reasons for introducing changes, one of the reason is the MCA's feedback or MCA's observation on rising disciplinary cases. So if you would look at the existing requirement, normally there is a Board of Discipline which is set up. The Board of Discipline constitutes the eminent persons who has relevant knowledge and experience, be it on disciplinary matters, be it law, or be it related to the individual professions. So that person is considered to be the presiding officer of the Board of Discipline. In addition to the presiding officer, there are two other members. One who is a council member of the respective institute, and the other is someone who is nominated by the government, right? So this is what is the existing requirement. If I compare the existing requirement with the proposals made, as far as the number of the constituting members are concerned, that remains the same. So earlier we had 3, so now it is still 3. Okay, but what was changed is the mix of those persons or the professional background of those persons. If you would note, normally out of this 3-member committee, 2 of them are those persons who are members of those particular institutes. So if I have to talk about the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, so out of this 3, 2 would be CAs. But what the bill has suggested is that the presiding officer should be a person who is not a member of the respective institute. So if I talk about this, the Board of Discipline of ICAI, then the bill proposes that the presiding officer of the Board of Discipline cannot be a chartered accountant. However, he should have knowledge of laws, of disciplinary matter, and he will be that person who would be nominated by the government. Okay. So on this aspect, there were certain apprehensions that is it that the government is trying to introduce its own people through this mechanism. If you would see, there is a text which I've highlighted in italics at the below box. What the government has suggested that even though they would nominate a person, but all these individual institutes would recommend or create a pool of persons from whom the government would choose their representatives. So it is not that the government representatives would be would only be a bureaucrat or a person who is not having relevant experience on this field, but they have given the free hand to the institutes to create a pool of people from which these government representation would be picked up. So this was as far as the presiding officers are concerned. Other than that, there would be another person who would again not be a member of the institute, having knowledge in the field of law, economics, finance, accountancy, and this will again be chosen by the central government from the pool which will be created by the individual institutes. Third, there would be a nomination by the respective institutes. Again, that person would be chosen from that particular pool. So obviously this was a big area of debate where the institute, especially the ICAI, felt that the appointment of 2 non-CAs as members out of a 3-member committee would have a very large impact, as the work of CAs would majorly be judged by non-CAs. The ICAI also felt that non-CAs may not have the relevant knowledge and experience. For example, accounting standards, standards on auditing, they deal with very complex and judgmental matters. There are inherent limitations of an audit. There is again a concept like true and fair, which is very subjective in nature. And if a non-CA group of members are having a majority place, then it was felt by ICAI that probably it is not going in the right direction. However, the Company Secretary Institute as well as the Cost Accountant Institutes, they did not had major reservations. They kind of stated that that these are certain technical changes, and they suggested those technical changes. But on a broad basis, they did not had any major reservations against these existing proposals. Similar to the Board of Discipline, there is also a disciplinary committee. So if you would look at the theme of changes remains the same. Here also, the bill had proposed that instead of having a majority being constituted by the members of the respective institute, they should be constituted by someone who are not members of those institutes. So if you would look at the existing disciplinary committee, the president or the vice president of the council of the individual institute acts as the presiding officer. Other than him, there are 4 other members. So 2 are the council members and 2 are nominated by the government. So in the same way, the ministry had suggested that the disciplinary committee should also be overhauled. It should be the president or the presiding officer of the disciplinary committee should be by a person who is not a member, but he should have relevant knowledge and experience in field of law, accounting, and disciplinary matter. Again, the two members who were earlier council members would now be replaced by 2 persons who are not the members of the respective institute, but they are from eminent background, having relevant experience in law, economics, finance, etc. Again, the remaining 2 would be nominated by the institute. Here also, the bill had suggested that a pool of professionals would need to be set up by the respective institute, and wherever applicable, the government will nominate these representatives or their representatives from this pool of panel. So ICAI had similar observations regarding the work of a chartered accountant being judged by a non-chartered accountant. It also stated that ICAI is a member of the International Federation of Accountants, and as per this relationship, they are supposed to ensure compliance with the framework at an international level. And they also felt that this is not aligned with what the association with IFAC requires. So the Institute of Cost Accountants as well as the ICAI, here as well, they did not have any major reservations. So now let's see what the committee deliberated, right? Because it is a big issue from the overall governance and the way in which the disciplinary mechanism is being looked at present. So Standing Committee again took the views of the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, and it observed that the amendments are being proposed to bring more accountability and transparency in the decision-making process. It also studied the global best practices. So some of them, if you could see, have been highlighted on these slides. So for examples, in UK, the disciplinary panels are headed by a non-CA. From a US perspective, there is a separate body which looks at licensing as well as permitting any professionals from conducting the services of an auditor. There as well, the members are appointed by the government. Similarly, in South Africa, it is generally by the chairperson of the South African regulator is generally an attorney or an advocate or a retired magistrate. What the committee also observed when they were looking at global best practices is that for the for more transparency as well as accountability, it is normally expected that conduct of CAs who are auditors are regulated by independent regulators, which are constituted by government, and majority of them are non-CAs. So net from its theme or from its observation from global perspective, the committee noted that globally as well, these bodies have a majority member or they're headed by someone who is not a member of that particular institute. So the standing committee also felt that it is time that we embrace those global benchmark and relook at the disciplinary mechanism in the institutes in India as well. The comment which ICAI made on its compliance with the IFAC association, the standing committee noted that the IFAC statement, one of the very key criteria is measurement of independence in regulatory functions. And in this statement, the IFAC has specifically stated that the independence of regulatory functions can be achieved if there is a participation of non-auditors in the disciplinary and investigative functions. The committee also reiterated that there is no government interference in the constitution. In fact, the government would choose nominees out of the panel which has been created by the individual institutes. Further, it also reiterated that the proposed amendments do not take away the professional autonomy of these institutes in a significant manner. So here, if I can summarize, the move is towards a regulatory overhaul of the disciplinary mechanism. We can expect when the rule making is there or whenever the sections are notified, we would need to watch out what is the fine print of those rules, because that's where the actual implementation would start. But from an overall governance perspective, the ministry and both the standing committee felt that through this, the expectation now is that we would see a faster resolution of disciplinary proceedings. There would be a faster or a better transparency in the entire decision-making process. Okay. Other than that, the bill also proposed that there has to be a time-bound resolution mechanism, right? So right now, under the framework of all the three institutes, there is no specific timelines up to which any disciplinary matter which has been brought to the attention of the institute will be resolved. Okay, so what the bill proposed is the director of discipline should give opportunity to the member or the firm and submit a statement in written within 21 days. So let's say if there is allegation or an observation that has been made by any stakeholder and has been forwarded to the respective institute, the director discipline of that respective institute, its submit is expected to make an inquiry, perform its own analysis, and submit its report within 21 days. Again, these 21 days is extendable for another set of 21 days, subject to the fact that there is a valid reason for such extension. Now, this is the cutoff date. If you would see in the next two bullets, is when I will measure the overall closing time of any allegation that have been raised. So the next step after the director discipline has given its report is for the Board of Discipline to consider the report and concludes its inquiry within 90 days of the receipt of the report. So again, they have prescribed a time limit of 90 days. After the Board of Discipline has concluded its inquiry, now it is for the final leg, which is the Disciplinary Committee, to conclude its inquiry. Again, overall time of 180 days has been given from the date of receipt of information or the report of the Director of Discipline. So, as I said, the report of the Director of Discipline is the starting point, which will trigger the maximum time limit up to which the proceedings can be resolved. From a response perspective, ICAI did not overall reject the time-bound mechanism. However, it did highlight that when the timelines are being prescribed, it should be prescribed after keeping into mind the practical aspects, because there could be many complexities in that particular matter. It might involve discussions with various stakeholders, and it might sometimes take some extended time. So the ICAI felt that the timelines that have been proposed should be realistic and should take into account the practical aspects. It also reiterated that for the sake of closure of the concerns in expeditious manner, the basic principle of natural justice cannot be overlooked. There should be, when the timelines are being framed, it should be very careful that the proper time is given both to the regulator as well as the person who has been alleged for a particular misconduct to put up their point of views. The ICAI also recommended that instead of putting a stage-wise resolution time, an upper time limit for disposal should be prescribed as an alternative measure. Again, the other two institutes, they had not responded on this particular aspect. Well, what the standing committee noted is that the proposals are being made based on a high-level committee which MCA had set up in previous years. So that high-level committee also reiterated that the time has come when there has to be a time-bound resolution mechanism. We cannot have a system where there is no upper time limit for resolution of disciplinary cases, especially when there is a very high pendency of cases. The committee also noted that ICAI is agreeable, but it does not want to commit to a particular timeline. So that the committee felt is a bit odd. There are a large number of pending cases, especially for cases more than 3 years. And that probably the main point which the MCA had considered when they have made these proposals. The standing committee also stated that introduction of timeline for completion of disciplinary proceeding is reasonable and justified with a view of ensuring prompt disposal for disciplinary cases. So if you would see on an overall basis, the thrust of the ministry is to have a time-bound resolution process so that if there is any misconduct, it is properly taken care of within a time limit. What I would like to would all of you to note is the box in the below, right? What the bill has also stated, and now it has been enacted through the act as well, that the Board of Discipline, the Disciplinary Committee, would make available the information in the public domain, the status of actionable information, the complaints pending. Okay, so if you would see through this particular amendment, the MCA is trying to have a much more transparent mechanism so that the relevant information is put out to the public at large. Now, one can always say that, how does it matter? Because ultimately, it is just an information which is made available in the public domain. What I personally feel is that if there are cases which are pending against a particular firm, then there is obviously it is not looked at in a very good spirit. I'm not getting into the merits or demerits of the particular case because it is again very, very fact specific. But from a optics perspective, let's say if I am a common stakeholder in a particular entity who is audited by, by someone, or who is advised by someone against whom there are multiple cases, I would be concerned, right? So that's one area which I thought I would like to highlight, because this aspect was not particularly discussed in the standing committee report, but from an overall reputation perspective of the firm, or the way any corporate or any person would like to engage, that might cast some concern on those particular firms or particular professionals. Well, the next important point which the committee also looked at is the liability of firms for misconduct. So if you would look at the existing framework, the ICAI, or for the matter other institutes, they would look at only at a particular member. They would not have the power to penalize the particular firm. So the bill proposed that the Board of Discipline be empowered to initiate actions against the firm if its partner or the owner is repeatedly found guilty of misconduct, which has been mentioned in the first schedule of the respective institute. What I would like you to note is that the bill is proposing for a repeated misconduct, and that too, they have prescribed that the repeated misconduct should have happened over a period of last 5 years. So if that is the case, then the Board of Discipline can prohibit any activity relating to a CA practice for not exceeding 1 year. It can also impose a fine or penalty of 25 lakh rupees. Okay, so now it doesn't stop there. Even the disciplinary committee can institute actions. However, if the disciplinary committee institute actions, then whatever we discussed about the penal consequences will be just double. So for example, the penalty of 25 lakhs will go up to 50 lakhs. What the disciplinary committee is also empowered is that they can even suspend or cancel and remove the name of the CA firm from the register of members. So if you would see the monitoring mechanism or the disciplinary mechanism, the bodies who are going to institute them have been empowered with instituting penal actions, not only against the member, but also on the firm. Now, ICAI again felt that there might be certain practical challenges, and the penalties or the consequences may need to be reworded. So it kind of didn't disagree to what the proposals were, but it only cited that these may be drafted in a better way so as to avoid any practical challenges. So for example, it stated that that when we're talking about penalty, whether all firms will be penalized. So in case of a common partner, so for example, I am a partner in firm A and I'm also a partner in firm B, and if the firm A is penalized, whether firm B will also be penalized because there is a common partner. What would be the possible consequences when the firm which has done the misconduct is dissolved? So net ICAI highlighted certain aspects which should be considered by the ministry. for its rule making purpose. One of the important point which the ICAI highlighted is that if any particular firm is penalized, that would lead to unnecessary hardship for other partners as well as other employees of that firm, because most of them would be dependent on that particular firm for their livelihood, and they would be penalized for any fault of theirs. So the standing committee particularly noted that on these proposals, the ICAI raised no objections. It only gave recommendations to fine-tune the suggestions and to have a much more practical manner in which these are implemented. So two important points which the standing committee reiterated is that it is not that the bill is saying that they will be they would be penalized for same or identical offense. Okay, the bill is saying that if there is a repeated misconduct in the last 5 years, so the bill is saying that if there is a repeated misconduct which may or may not be the same type of misconduct, right? In that case, it is reasonable that the action is initiated against the firm as well. It also clarified that partners of the firm on behalf of which the audit or certification work was carried out is found to be involved is a misconduct would only be covered. So in my example, if I am a common partner in firm A and firm B, if firm A has done misconduct, then the actions would only be limited to firm A, and it will not go to firm B. The the standing committee also highlighted that the proposals were necessitated by various unwanted incidents, and the report specifically has mentioned the fallout of the Satyam case. So on an overall basis, if you would see, the respective institutes have now been empowered to initiate actions against the firms as well. Okay, so one of the key recommendation which the committee made, right, and this is basis the observation which MCA had, is on the constitution of Indian Institute of Accounting. So if I have to give you a bit of a background, the ministry, while the bill was being discussed at the standing committee level, it came out with certain suggestions, and those suggestions or those proposals were not included in the bill at all. Okay, so it just came up as a matter for discussion because MCA felt since there is a wider body for consultation, so let's pick them up and seek the views as well. So what the MCA commented is that in an Indian scenario, there is a statutory monopoly for the whole profession. So for example, if I talk about CA, it is governed by the ICAI, and so on and so forth for the other two professions. So MCA also felt that there is a scope for improving the overall quality and competency of these professions. It also looked at the qualification and licensing of accountants in various advanced countries like the US, UK, and Canada. And there also it felt that it is done by multiple bodies. There is no one body which will give a license to practice a CA for that matter. MCA proposed establishing a series or a string of institutes which might be called as Indian Institute of Accountants, with the sole objective of raising the quality of standards and accounting education, and which will obviously again give a competition to ICAI. Briefly, what the ministry suggested is that these bodies would be similar to IITs and IIMs, which will be instituted by statutory bodies established by central law. It can have a board size, which can comprise of members, non-CAs, government officers from Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Education, and Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Now, this particular institute should develop a curriculum. At present, it can start with an undergraduate program, and they can gradually mature to a postgraduate program and even PhD. They should also be empowered to give to provide license to practice similar to a chartered accountant. Now, the standing committee agreed to the views of the ministry, and it categorically stated that multiplicity of bodies is in line with globally accepted norms, and it is expected that it would promote healthy competition, raise standards, and quality of auditing and accounting professions, and it will obviously boost the overall credibility of financial reporting. Committee desired that the government should consider setting up of Indian Institute of Accountants akin to IIMs and IITs for further development. So if I take a pause here, so it is right now the standing committee has put the ball back to the ministry, and they have said that you please have a relook and see whether how the ministry would like to institute a new framework. But on an overall basis, it was of the idea of setting up separate institutes. Okay, so that's all I had to cover from my side. If I have to summarize, as I said, the fine print would need to be awaited. In many places, there has been a specific section where they have talked about rule making. So ultimately, those rules have to be read in a much more clear way.
Rajesh,
sorry, there is some background noise.
Can you please mute Sir Ramprasad?
Yes, madam. Yeah.
Can you please mute your audio?
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah. Thank you, Nilanjan, for the excellent presentation. And just heads up, we also have CA Amarjit Chopra ji, our past president of ICAI. Welcome, Amarjit Chopra ji. And now I open the forum for discussion. But before that, before I open, I welcome and request Amarjit Chopra ji to address the forum on the critical aspects of CARO and the bill for the regulations of the CACS and similar bodies. Sir, you are on mute.
Thank you, Archana.
Yeah.
Welcome, Mr. Amarjit Chopra. It's indeed a pleasure to have you once again, and always contributing in a positive way to the profession and industry and India growth story. I would request everybody, Mr. Amarjit Chopra would address us for about half an hour, and before he closes, he will also address all issues. Mr. Amarjit Chopra has been on the CARO committee, and there are so many changes, and he is a part of taking the India growth story forward through legislation and also implementation of legislation all over corporate regulations, corporate sector, regulatory sector, professional sector, industry, and also on the board of some of the most reputed groups like Tata's. Amarjit Chopra, over to you.
So we can't hear you, sir.
Okay, let me see what's the issue. Amarjit sir, please unmute. You are still on mute. Let me try. No.
He's probably rejoining, Archana.
Am I audible now?
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes.
And I'm visible also?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Very much, sir.
Yes, welcome.
Thank you. Just give me 2 minutes. I will make. Thank you, Manojji. And thanks, Archana. Thanks, Nilanjan. And Dr. Prakash Valecha, whom I can see right now. It's a pleasure joining you people this morning. Maybe slightly late, but I think insistence of Manojji does not leave anything to chance for that matter. That's all I can say. So far as these two topics are concerned, the CARO 2020 and the one bill which actually takes care of all the three institutes, whether it is chartered accountants or cost accountants or you can say company secretaries. I have my own impressions basically with regard to each one of these subjects. And I will be frank in sharing those views with you. And I will like to call spade a spade for that matter. You see, so far as CARO 2020 is concerned, I can say again, it is not that the government wanted everything to happen that way. I think we invited the problem ourselves. We invited the troubles ourselves. If we do not report voluntarily some of the things, basically, and we keep on taking the shelter of SA 240 all the time, that we are only watchdogs, we are not bloodhounds, we are not supposed to actually get into the frauds. Only when I stumble upon some information, then I am supposed to look at it. I don't think it is going to work in the longer run. And I think it has been extremely detrimental to the profession, if you really ask me, this kind of an approach. I've been saying it for ages. Somewhere or the other, the institute and the membership will have to take the responsibility, will have to own up the responsibility. I think I said it in the other time also, that a country which is besetted with a NPA level of 8 lakh crores, I'm talking of a figure of 8 lakh crore after writing off 8 lakh crore rupees in the last 5 years. And 11.5 lakh crore is locked up in agricultural loans, which is not going to come back. Almost 7.5 lakh crore is locked up in mudra loans, which is not going to come back. Almost 6.5 lakh crore is locked up in discoms, which are in a bad shape. If we still keep on saying that probably the auditors are never responsible, I don't think that it is going to help. One thing that I would like to say is that one thing that we were able to get done, I was chairing this particular committee of CARO 2020, very frankly, I chaired that committee, which went into these changes. The various ROCs who were there in the committee, various registrar of companies were there, the regional directors were there. They wanted about 84 amendments to CARO. They wanted 84 more clauses to be added to CARO. With a lot of difficulty, with a lot of persuasion, we were able to bring it down. But more importantly, what we did was, we said that every time you try to make auditor a scapegoat, we will not allow that to happen. Now you fix the responsibility of the management also. And that is why the Schedule 3 has undergone a change. It was because of this particular committee that the Schedule 3 has undergone a change. Let's be very clear about it. I, along with few representatives from the council, were absolutely clear that you cannot keep on holding the auditor responsible and the management who are responsible for the preparation of the financial statements get away scot-free. You can't have that kind of situation. And that is why today we have asked for the aging of the debtors to be certified by the management. We have asked the aging of the trade payables to be certified by the management. We have asked the aging of the capital work in progress to be certified by the management. With regard to the title deeds, whether any of the title deeds are in the names of the promoters or employees of the company, we have asked the management also to certify the same thing. We have asked the management to certify that whatever returns they have filed with the banks, these are as per the books of accounts. I think this has been one of the very important changes which people have not actually been able to appreciate. Because all these things, we have first asked the management to certify and then the auditor will comment upon. Now, the thing is whether auditor will take it on the face value of the management or the auditor will actually get into certain things. That's very important. I give one simple example. If the question is being asked whether any Benami transactions notice has been received by the company or any such proceedings are going against the company, and if the management tells you no such proceedings are going on, but if you scrutinize the legal expenses bill, there comes an advocate bill which says representing the company for the Benami transactions. Can the auditor be absolved of the responsibility? I think SA 580 is very clear that you may tend to rely upon the management representation, but you can only rely upon the management representation after verifying its authenticity and reliability. That's very, very important. Unfortunately, what has been happening all these years is, particularly in the case of the tax audits, where we conduct the tax audit of the partnership firms, proprietary firms, and certain other entities, we tend to write in the balance sheet itself, inventories as certified and valued by the management. That is a death knell for the profession, if you ask me. You can't do it. That is my responsibility. I have to also verify the inventories. I have also to value the inventory. If not verify all the time, at least I have to value the inventory myself. I can't say that the inventories have been valued by the management under any circumstances. I think there are certain things which there have been certain practices which we have been following over a number of years, and we have tended to carry it on. And I will only like to say that when in 2003, CARO was to be amended. At that time also I chaired that particular committee. CARO actually meant manufacturing and other companies' auditors report order. But the government was telling us that you are taking CARO as mild and otherwise cooperative auditors report order. They said that you keep on writing one sentence that the fixed asset register is under updation. When the company is born, on that day, that statement is written. And when the company gets liquidated, the same statement continues to be written. Now, one question that I used to ask myself, even at that particular point of time, and I will ask Nilanjan also to actually comment upon it later on if you can. If I write fixed asset register is under updation, and I say underneath that thereof, that physical verification of the fixed asset has been carried out, and no serious discrepancies have been observed. How can I say this? If the fixed asset register is under updation, the correct values of the fixed assets are not there in the fixed asset register. How I can say that the book values have been compared with the physical values? But believe me, pick up 95% of the CARO reports, particularly in the case of the private limited companies, you will find the same sentence. No, that is where the things have actually gone wrong. And that is where probably the credibility, entire credibility of CARO went away. And at that particular point of time also, we used to observe that somebody will write provisions of section 58 have been complied with. Neither the company has received any deposit nor they have repaid any deposit. Where is the question of compliance with the 58A? You can say that these are not applicable to the company. Once types something in one of the years, it is cut copy and paste. That can't continue. There's no way it can continue. And I think these are the changes which have been brought in now. Now, capital work in progress, believe me, why capital work in progress question has come in. There have been a lot of corporates wherein capital work in progress, you undertook a particular project, and that project has been languishing. I'm using that word, has been languishing for years together. But the management is keeping on capitalizing the expenses, both in respect of the interest and in respect of the administrative overheads to the capital work in progress. How can I do it? If at all certain abnormal delays have taken place in execution of the capital work in progress, there is no way that I can capitalize these expenses. And that distorts my profit and loss account also. And that distorts my balance sheet also for that matter. So, and we said that you will have to undertake the impairment study. The moment you say that a particular capital work in progress is there for the last 5 years or 6 years or 7 years, in that case, the auditor per force will have to undertake an impairment study now. He will have to find out why it is there, and then he will also have to find out what is the kind of capital commitment in respect of this capital work in progress for the further period for that matter. So it is not that the government only wanted it. I think for the sake of the profession, it was desirable. Look at the trade payables. We have been all aging the debtors, and that also trade receivables we have been aging, and that also we have been saying less than 6 months, more than 6 months. No, more than 6 months can be more than 5 years also. It can be more than 7 years also. Hello? Hello? Hello?
So we
can
lost
hear
the
you, sir.
video.
You can hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Because the electricity has gone off. Anyway, if
Okay,
I
okay.
can be heard,
Sure.
then there's no issue at all. Now, in the case of the trade, in the case of receivables, we have been saying less than 6 months, more than 6 months overdue. But then we said that in our view, it is more important that if something is more than 3 years old or more than 5 years old or more than 6 years old, then there can be a different kind of provision in that respect, compared to if it is more than 6 months or less than 6 months. So that is one thing that has been brought in. But what is more significant is in respect of the trade payable. Why? Because if in trade payable, a payment is due for 5 crores or 6 crores or 10 crores or 15 crores, and we all know that these are there. It's not that these are not there. Let's be very clear about it. And if a payment has been pending for last 5 years or 6 years, and the party has not been claiming it, and I am saying that the balance confirmations have not been received in all the cases for that matter, as per SA 505, what does it mean? There could be cases. I'm not saying that there will be cases, but there could be cases, and there are cases basically, if you ask me, wherein these are all expenses booked, and these are not the genuine expenses which are booked, and these are being shown as the payable amount since then. So the moment now the trade payables are being aged, and these will be aged from, you can say beyond 3 years also, I think the assessing officer is going to question you, please tell us which are the parties, and he may be able to summon those parties and find out why you are not claiming these payments. Which party will not claim a payment of 5 crore or 2 crore or 3 crore or 50 lakh, whatever the amount may be, unless there is a dispute? And if there was a dispute that you have been saying that I had not received the material, why did you book the expense? If you say that I had not received the services, why did you book the expense? And why you didn't surrender it before the assessing officer at that particular point of time? I think these are all the issues which have been taken care of in CARO this time. And this is very important. And even in respect of the loan and advances and investments, if you ask me, earlier the main emphasis was on what? The main emphasis was on the parties, the advances given or loans given to the parties where there was some kind of interest of the other directors, or these were the group companies only. This time, the first question says every kind of loan and advance. It talks of all kind of investments made anywhere for that matter. I think that's very important. So it is not only your loan and advances given only to the related parties. I think even in respect of the unrelated parties, that question has been asked. And one most significant thing which has been asked is that whether any advance which is being given is in the nature of a loan or not. Because what has been happening is, I can tell you that I show something as an advance to my related party, to my unrelated party, wherever I have to give an advance. But actually it is in the nature of a loan, which is, I'm not going to take it back for 3 years or 4 years or 5 years. I can quote you cases where the parties have given, I will not like to name those parties, these are listed entities, believe me, where the companies had given certain advances to related parties, 5 crore, 10 crore, 100 crores. I can tell you a case of 100 crores also, where the advance had been given, saying that this is towards the rent being paid in advance. And in the rental agreement, not even the space measurement had been given, that how much space is going to be actually hired from the other company for that matter. And there was an advance of 100 crores, mind it. And in how much time the property will be built, from which date you will take over the possession, nothing was mentioned in the agreement. So this was nothing but a loan that you had given, and you wanted it to be repaid whenever you want, when able, then repayable for that particular matter. Now that kind of situation cannot go on. Now the question has been asked very specifically whether any advance which has been given to any of the entities is in the nature of a loan or not. So as an auditor, mind my words and believe my words, if I'm not careful today to find out why is it that a particular advance which was given to a particular party, it has been just continuing like that. It can't, because it is, and if I have given an advance of 5 crore rupees to a company for purchase of certain material and the total turnover of the other company is not even 1 crore, can it be treated as an advance? There's no way that it can be treated as advance. But unfortunately, it has been happening. And as I said, most of the problems we have invited for ourselves. Because we used to tell the party, loan only they say advance, let it be treated as a trade advance. So we'll take care of this kind of situation. I don't think that it can work anymore. So far as the other questions are concerned, I think some of the questions with regard to the fraud, some of the questions, particularly a question with regard to the ratios. Now, when I talk of the ratios, 11 ratios have been prescribed. But we first told that let the management give those ratios. Let the management certify those ratios. And if you change the numerator or denominator in one of the years, the entire ratio undergoes a change. The management has to ensure that the numerators and the denominators are the same, basically. I'm not talking in terms of the figures, but I'm talking in terms of the components, basically, of the numerators or denominators. You cannot have. Now, one thing that I will like to say here is, as an auditor, it is not essential that if the current ratio improves, that the company is doing well. Current ratio may improve because of the fact that the debtors are piling up. The current ratio would improve if the you can say the cash is piling up and the cash management is bad, so the cash keeps on piling up. So that may not be a very good reflection on the part of the company, basically. If your inventories keep piling up, then that could also mean that your entire current ratio goes up. If your trade payables are going down because nobody believes in you and they say, no, you make us the payment first and then we'll give you the supply. Your inventories may go up, your debtors may go up, but your creditors are going down. Your current ratio can improve in those cases. I think we will have to analyze even the ratios for that matter. Whether any improvement or deterioration in the ratios is actually justified or it is not justified. First, the management will do it, and then I have to do it for that matter. But one of the most difficult questions, which we never wanted, very frankly, but the government wanted it, and that it's because of the government that question has come in, wherein they have said that whether looking at the present entire position of the company, do you feel that the company will be able to meet its current liabilities in the next 1 year? Now, one of the arguments can be that how can I predict? I'm not an astrologer. I'm not a economist. I'm not, after all, I have done chartered accountancy. I've not done a course on astrology for that matter. But one of the things which was raised by the MCA people in that particular talk, in that particular committee was that if you talk of the going concern concept, after all, we all talk of going concern concept. And what is going concern? And going concern is also that in the near future, the company will not be closed down. They said, if you can talk of going concern, why can't you talk of whether the current liabilities will be met in the next 1 year or not? At least you will have some kind of situation in which you can assess whether you have the desired liquidity or a desired business level, which will be able to take care of your current liabilities in the future for that matter. In the next 1 year. And 1 year projection is not too difficult. Let's be very clear about it. And they were very clear that suppose it so happens that your business goes down in the next 1 year, but you have got the working papers with you, based upon which you had assumed. You had assumed that the business will continue at the present level. Forget about the higher level or so. And if at the present level also you could meet your current liabilities, that's fine. But suppose the government policy comes against you tomorrow, and you are unable to do anything, and you are unable to actually repay your current liabilities, then you have a justified reason for that as an auditor. But for that, what is more important is that I must have the working papers. And how many of us have the working paper? It's a big question mark to me, very frankly. Most of us don't have the even engagement letters, for appointment letters, forget about the working papers. I have sat through the disciplinary committee for last 4 years, and it ended only on 12th of February this year. And three years earlier, I was on the disciplinary committee. 7 years together, I have been on the disciplinary committee. Believe me, even the appointment letters are not available with the auditors. That's the problem. And we are talking of the working papers. Now, if the working paper is not available, how do you defend yourself? There's no way that you can defend yourself. So I think looking at this entire CARO, you will have to have the working papers to defend yourself with regard to any question that you are going to answer. Even with regard to that, whether any advances in the nature of loan, you will have to justify yourself. It is not that you will not have to justify yourself. Then there is a very difficult question to be answered. Whether any surrender has been made by before the income tax department or before any of the taxation authorities, and whether that has been properly accounted for in the books of account or not. I think this question has again risen because of ourselves only, nothing else. Because if they surrendered some cash or if they surrendered some inventory before any of the tax authorities for that matter, how it has been accounted for? I think that's a very important question. And if you have paid tax thereon, suppose you declared a cash of 1 crore rupees, and on that you paid 30 lakh rupees. Now you account for only 70 lakh rupees. You can't do that. You will have to account for 1 crore and pay 30 lakh as the tax there. That's very important. So I think this entire accounting of the surrendered assets also is going to be one of the important aspects, and then you have to document it. Now, one way is that I will say that I have relied upon the management representation. They say that there has been nothing. But then again, I say you scroll through the entire legal expenses. You have paid to the advocates. You have paid to the chartered accountants to defend yourself in the tribunal or in the High Court for that particular matter. How can you say that I didn't know about it? I think these are all very, very important issues, believe me. And you cannot now bury the entire thing under the carpet. There's no way that you can just do it. So to my mind, what is very, very important, and then the worst part has been, believe me, you go to all NCLT cases where these IBC proceedings are going on. Whatever inventories or debtors or creditors were shown by the companies, these figures have come from air. All these figures have come from air. Nothing is from the books of account. And what we have been telling the clients? We have been telling the clients that don't give the figure for 31st March, give the figure for 29th March. Don't give the figure for 30th June, give the figure for 29th June or 27th June or 28th June. Don't give the figure for 30th September, give the figures for 28th of September. But even if you give for 28th September, as an auditor, you will be able to reconcile the figures for 2 days. You can't say that I cannot reconcile the figure for 2 days. Pick up any number of balance sheets. I'm talking of this. Pick up any number of balance sheets which are filed with the banks branches, and then look at the returns which have been filed with them. You will always find that in the returns which were filed before them, the debtors and the stocks were always much higher, and the creditors were always only 1/3 of the actual creditors as shown in the balance sheet. And why it has been happening? It has been happening because there would not be any kind of drawing power if the correct figures are shown. And that is where the entire thing has gone wrong with the working capital loans. Now it is here. I think the responsibility first of the management has been fixed, and then it is of the auditor which has been fixed. I'll just give you one example. Sitting over in the disciplinary committee, we have come across a very interesting case wherein a chartered accountant has verified a particular debtor's figure. And after all, there is an auditor of that particular company also. Opening debtors, opening trade receivables of this company as on 1/4/2015 were, year can be any other year, but the figures I am giving you the correct figure. So it was beginning 1/4/2015, the trade receivables. total sales from 1/4/2015 to 31st March 2016 were 205 crores. And the debtors which have been certified, or the trade receivables which have been certified for 31st December 2015 are 296 crores. Are you with me on these figures? I again repeat. 1/4/2015 opening trade receivables 55 crores. Total sales of the company for the full year up to 31st March 2016, 205 crores. What could be the total debtors if nothing was received? It could not be more than 260 crores for the full year. But on 31st December 2015, someone certifies a total debtors or total trade receivable of 296 crores. Is it possible? Is it possible? And then forget about anything else. Against a total sale of 205 crore, you say total trade receivables outstanding of 296 crores. It means the sale figure was also wrong, the trade receivable figure was also wrong, and the statutory auditor who audits the company doesn't even look at it, how the company has done it. Is it not a fraud committed? Is it not my responsibility under SA 240 to look at it? I think we have oversimplified SA 240 for our own purposes, for our own convenience, and it cannot work out. And that is why CARO has become more complicated. And now we are saying how to answer this CARO. पर सरकार कहती कुछ तो करो भाई. सरकार यही कह रही कुछ तो करो. The problem is that if we don't do it, someone else will make us do it. And when someone else makes us do it, it becomes more complicated, it becomes far more difficult. Mark my words, so far as that particular point is concerned. So that is all about CARO that I would like to say. If there are any questions, I would like to answer. But before that, for about 10 minutes, I would like to deal with the bill, which was given assent to by the President also. Now it is an act in any case. See, so far as this act is concerned, it has arisen partially out of misinformation about this profession to the government and partially because of our own doing. Let's be very clear about it. I do not blame the government entirely, but I do not defend the government entirely. If the Honorable Finance Minister tells the Parliament that in case of Satyam, no action has been taken by the Institute so far, there cannot be a bigger misinformation than this. And the unfortunate part is we have not rebutted it so far after her statement in the Parliament. Our office bearers, our leaders have not been able to rebut it so far in the press. I don't know why, for what. In 2011, 10-11, when I was the president, in 2009 it happened, let's be very clear. Satyam happened in 2009. 2010, 2011, I was the president. Entire year, there was a stay by the High Court on these proceedings. It was around January end. I made it a point to see that I am able to get the stay vacated. I got the stay vacated. And I can also share with you, the topmost lawyers of this country refused to take up the case of the Institute. Someone saying that I am already having I'm pleading some other case for the PwC, I am consultant for PwC. None of the top lawyers would take up the case. I'm talking of all top lawyers, mind it. I had to hire one of the small-time lawyers. But that fellow worked so hard, got us the stay vacated, which seemed to be impossible. Before I laid down my office, I had a commitment to myself, if not to anyone else. We saw to it that the stay was vacated. And in 2012, we held the people guilty and we debarred them for the lifetime. Here is the delay. In 3 years, you do with the case and you debar the entire team. And you still say that Institute didn't do anything. This is the most unfortunate part. And we are not able to rebut it in the press. I think this is the misinformation campaign, and misinformation campaign cannot be bigger than what I am going to tell you. Whereas it says that this is a bill for all the three institutes. It's a bill for all the three institutes, CA, ICWA, now you can say cost and management accountant, or for the company secretaries. But if you read the objective of the bill, what does the bill say? To bring in more transparency in the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. What about company secretaries and cost accountants? You do not even talk about it. This is some kind of a prejudice which has developed in the bureaucracy or with the parliamentarians, somewhere or the other, against the institute for reasons, I don't know what are the reasons basically. But this has happened, and partially we are to be blamed. Whatever is happening in GST cases every day, and we all know it. Whatever has happened in the banks, we all know it. So part of it, we have to accept the blame. I'm not saying that. And some few of the years have been there in the institute when the display took absolutely a back seat. And cases were not actually given the due importance. That has also happened. It's not that it does not happen. So I will say partially we are responsible, but partially it is because of the misinformation campaign against the institute. So far as the proposed changes are concerned, you see, I always say, if I'm not mistaken, either it was the period of Mr. Kamlesh Vikamse or Mr. T.N. Manoharan, when I as a council member said it, that it will be in the best interest of the institute if we seek an amendment that a retired High Court judge should be a part of our disciplinary proceedings. It was not agreed to by the council. They said, how can we allow an outsider to come in? Today, what is going to happen? Today, what is going to happen? Had we brought in a retired High Court judge, it would have lent a semblance of independence to the disciplinary committee. You have to look. You have to have a vision. You just can't say that we will not allow the outsiders. No, all the outsiders are going to be there. 3 of the outsiders will be there, and the presiding officer will be a non-chartered accountant. That's the worst part of it. I actually am not cribbing about that a non-council member will be a member of the disciplinary committee. I'm not cribbing about it at all. Because if the government feels that there is a conflict of interest, that I go to seek the votes and I am the person who is going to sit on the judgment of the disciplinary cases of these people, let the government be very clear. But the government wants that the names of these 2 chartered accountants who are going to be there on the various benches of the disciplinary committee, because if there are 5 benches, 10 chartered accountants would be required, but who will not be the members of the council in that case. I have no cribbing about it. Let it be that way. But if institute is going to name those 10 members, is it not the conflict of interest? I don't know what the government is trying to say. Either the government should have said that they will nominate people of eminence, chartered accountants of eminence, to these disciplinary benches. Now, if you say that even the non-chartered accountants, you can suggest the names, and the chartered accountants also you will suggest the names, and we'll follow that. I don't know what the government is trying to convey. It's a very strange way that the government is trying to act. The worst part has been that we have not been able to take the other 2 institutes along. Neither the Cost Accounting Institute nor the Company Secretaries Institute. In a panel discussion which we held recently, the members of the other 2 institutes were there, and I told them that you have gone and said that it doesn't make any difference to you. Maybe that you are not even able, you have not been able to understand what it is. Today, the MC has circulated a list of the company secretaries also, more than 100 company secretaries, where they feel that probably they need to be acted against. So tomorrow, a non-company secretary will be able to decide the fate of those people also. I have only one regret. The presiding officer had to be a chartered accountant. I'm not talking of council member, had to be a chartered accountant. You can't have a situation where a non-doctor decides about how an operation has been conducted in the medical sciences. Can you do it? Can you have it in the bar council? You can't have it in the bar council. You can't have it in the medical sciences. Why only on chartered accountants? Why this blame of conflict of interest only on chartered accountants? Why don't you blame of conflict of interest on the parliamentarians themselves? They also go and seek votes and then they distribute the fees. Is it not the conflict of interest? Is it not the conflict of interest that for their own DA, whatever is to be raised, they just raise their hand and say, yes, it is approved? Is it not the conflict of interest? So why only the chartered accountants are being blamed for conflict of interest? I can't understand that situation. Somewhere or the other, I think we have to raise our voice, but unfortunately, where is the voice? I have not heard anything from any of the leaders so far. Either the present or the past. That's the problem. Somewhere, someone had to. I gave an interview in the TCFO and I said it very clearly that partially it is of our own making, but partially it is because of the misinformation to the government. Someone will have to say it. The government is also not justified in some of the acts. And some of the acts, they may be justified. There's no doubt about it. I'm not denying that particular part. So, what is important to be understood is that the other two institutes we have not been able to carry along with ourselves, and the other two institutes have not even understood the implication of this bill. Believe me. They are also going to suffer in the longer run. When a non-cost accountant will decide the fate of a cost accountant, when a non-company secretary will decide the fate of a company secretary, they are going to have it. But then the unfortunate part is that Institute of Company Secretaries can give any bureaucrat or can give any politician the degree of company secretaries, which we can't give. That is no conflict of interest. In Institute of Company Secretaries, they have the power to give honorary degrees of company secretaries. They have given it to bureaucrats. They have given it to politicians. We can't do it under the Act. And naturally, it can create some kind of conflict of interest somewhere or the other when you are able to do that. What is important to be understood is, I am very clear, and I said it in the panel discussion somewhere, that you have not understood, you will also suffer more than us. In any case, we have been taking action against our members all these years. Maybe in certain cases it has been slow. I'm not denying that particular part. But we have been, at least in my tenure in the council for 15 years, at least 5 members were debarred for the lifetime. I said, show me one institute which has done it. Show me one authority which has done it. One body which has done it. Debarring the members for the lifetime. And even now, we have debarred some of the members. But then, who has to explain it to the government? Someone has to explain it to the government. My humble request to you is, don't be too scared of this particular bill. I'm not scared of this particular bill. Believe me, I'm not too scared of this particular bill. The only regret that I have is that it somewhere or the other discriminates against the chartered accountants. And in any case, I'm very clear, the presiding officer of the disciplinary bench should be someone who understands accounting and auditing standards. You cannot have a person who doesn't understand it. That is my only regret. I have nothing else so far as this particular part is concerned. So far as their power to appoint the director, discipline, etc., let it be. How does it matter to me? I don't mind. If they have to be consulted, they have to be consulted in the matter of appointment of the director. Let it be that way. It makes no difference to me, basically. Because, and then they say that secretary has to be the CEO and the president has to be the head of the council. I think we weakened the position of the secretary for years together. We weakened the position of the secretary. We cannot weaken the position of the secretary. Secretary is definitely the CEO of the organization. I always believe in one thing, that so far as the foreign trips to the various chapters or various institutions are concerned, the staff of the institute should be sent in far greater frequency than the council members. Council members come for 3 years or 6 years or 9 years. Staff is permanent. If they build relations with those institutes, it can last longer. That is the way I look at it. I'm not saying that none of us will go. I'm not saying that none of the council members should go. But council members or the president or vice president has to go wherever, not necessarily only for seminars, not necessarily for webinars. I think wherever you are required for establishing some relationship with the foreign institutions with regard to some policy matters, on CAPA board, on IFAC board or any other board, most welcome. You may visit, but not for the other purposes. I think we weaken the position of the secretary. They have strengthened the position of the secretary. After all, who takes the work from the staff? Whose responsibility is it? It is not of the president, it is of the secretary. Let the secretary be also positioned. And so far as implementation of the decisions of the council are concerned, let president be responsible for it. Why should it happen that the decisions which were 10 years back implemented till date? Because change the president and mood of the council. You can't have it. It has to be a council-driven institute. It cannot be only a president-driven institute. I'm very clear so far as that issue is concerned. If there are any questions, I would like to answer those. Thank you very much. Thank you, Amarjit.
Thank you, Mr. Amarjit. Wonderful insights from you, both on CARO, how the committee worked, so many issues, and also on the parliamentary panel and your forthright views on actual issues. We have a few important questions. Mr. Sanjiv Choudhry has asked some important questions on the chat.
Please,
Sanjiv, are you there?
Let him raise it. He is there. He is a younger
Sanjiv,
brother.
are you there? Can you put your video on and interact directly? That will be very nice.
I put my video on, sir, and Mr. Chopra, I know
and
very
welcome,
well.
Sanjiv Choudhry. Welcome. Good to have you. And we really appreciate the wonderful work you have been doing on ethics at a global level. And we'll be expecting more from you next time. But now on the core issues which Mr. Amarjit Chopra has addressed. Yeah.
So, sir, first of all, it is always good to hear you, whether one-to-one or whether in these conferences, always a great learning from you. Mr. Chopra has been my senior. I have known him for 30 odd years, 30 plus years. So great learnings from him. Actually, sir made some very critical points on, the working papers not available, the institute not responding to the issues. On working papers, sir, what should one do? In the sense, if my members don't keep the working papers, I think, is there something wrong in the way we have done the training? Is there something more we need to do in training those members on the audit processes? I don't know where the ill lies and how do we correct it. So audit quality has to improve is my one comment on his points.
Can I answer?
Please, sir,
right
please.
I think your peer review process has to be strengthened far more than what it is today. Your peer reviewers also have to have an understanding of essays. That's very important. And I think over the years now, at least last 4, 5, 6 years, the quality of the peer reviewers has started improving. And as it starts improving, I think this concept of working paper will start emerging. I have no doubt about it that we have, very frankly, Sanjeev, what has happened is you hold seminars on income tax, you hold seminars on GST, thousands of people will throng the seminar halls. But you hold seminars on auditing standards, nobody will come. Because people always thought that we know all the auditing. Whereas that is one area where we have been the most weak, if you really ask me. So I think in the years to come, it is going to happen. I'm very clear with NFRA coming in, people are now at least little bit scared, whether it is the bigger firm or the smaller firm. I think each one of us is getting worried about what kind of information will be sought by NFRA. Yeah. Or even in the disciplinary committee now, I think some of the members have been asking for the working papers, and if the working papers are not there, the action is being taken. But I think we need to improve the process of the peer review as well as the FRRB and the, you can say the quality review board.
So, sir, very quickly, a couple of my thoughts on peer review. I used to be with a large firm. I retired 3 years back. With due respect to the peer review done, I've seen it is pathetic. I'll be very honest. I'm going to be as critical as you are, and you have seen me doing that all the time. On your second point, sir, that people believe that they know audit and they probably attend more tech seminars and less audit seminars. Let me add, people in our profession believe that they are the most ethical and they don't anytime attend anything on ethics. Not that I'm on the ISBO board, I'm saying it. I've seen it. I've gone to speak on the ethical seminars. There is hardly any attendance, unfortunately. And that is the core of our profession. I mean, unless we are ethically, integrity-wise correct, rest things will follow. So that's another unfortunate part. 2. 3, you made a point, sir, that institute does not take action. Let me say this with all honesty. You have been there much longer. You have been on the chair of the president. We are a president-driven institute, which you also said. The ill lies basically with this. And I'll give you only one example. I'm not defending a PwC or any large firm. I'm on a legal matter. Sir, you would recall when I was in the council, which was 13 to 19, I'm forgetting which year, SEBI passed an order against PwC, assuming the powers of a regulator. Now, obviously, the institute was not aware of the proceedings going on before SEBI because it was 1-to-1. Now, when the SEBI order became public, obviously PwC filed an appeal. I told the council and the president, I said, look, I think we should become respondents to the case only on a legal issue that SEBI does not have the powers to act against my members, not on factual, whether PwC is wrong, good, bad, ugly, whatever it is. Let's not go into the facts of the case, only on the legal matter. Fought and fought and fought. No response from the council, no response from the president. Obviously, PwC fought its case. 2 years later, this order was turned down by SAT, saying SEBI does not have the powers. Now, the institute is saying, oh, well, we were right. Bullshit. What did you do? Zero. Absolutely zero. And there we actually, sir, opened doors for the SEBI to pass orders against my other firms also. I mean, Sanjiv, Choudhry and company can't afford big lawyers, right? But we opened doors. I think the institute failed in their duty. Not once, many a time. I mean, you said this before, but I'm just giving one instance where I fought. No response. Let's take another issue, sir. We're talking about ethics, and Manoj said, if I can, address something for 2 minutes, and I don't want to take away anyone's time. You have spoken about 3 issues which have been deferred since July 20, now till September 22. And I'm not going to discuss those issues of NOPLAR, fees, and tax services. I'm only on one issue, on fees for a minute. Earlier, we have an advisory, sir, saying that the independence is impacted if your fee is more than 40%, very broadly saying, not going into the minute details. The council approved, rightly or wrongly, this will be the law going forward. But it's council approved. I'm respecting the council, whichever the council did. The next council can amend it, modify it. So I'm not going into whether 15% is correct or it should be 30% or 40%, whatever the numbers are. But see the situation today, sir. The earlier guidelines have been repealed. The current guidelines of the council have been deferred. So today, there are no guidelines. And we are sitting like this for 3 years. What is the council doing? And then we say we are not respected by the government. I think, sir, we are solely responsible in a very major way for not correcting it. 2, sir, you made a point on the misinformation with the FM. If there's a misinformation, we can correct it. Did we correct it? No, we're sitting on it. Why? Again, we're a party to the misinformation then. This is not happening.
That's what I said. That is exactly what I have said.
Absolutely. So I think the bigger blame lies with us. The lesser blame lies with the government.
I'm saying that. I'm not denying that. Yeah. I'm not denying.
Yeah. So that was the other point.
See, Sanjiv, whatever you have said, I'm not denying that. Unfortunately, you look at the definition of management services.
I was coming to that.
MC had been saying that you make the definition of the management services, bring it to us. We'll go accordingly. how much time it took it. I think that's important. So somewhere or the other, I think we have also faulted. I'm not saying that, but then there's a misinformation also. There is no doubt about it. You see, someone saying that institute does not take action, that is also incorrect. Totally incorrect with the government. The institute has taken action against the members. As I said, at least 5 of the cases I know during my tenure in the council, and some cases in the disciplinary committee when I have been there post that, where the members have been deferred for the lifetime. Show me even one bar council, show me medical council, show me any other institute which has done it. No one has done it. So I think that credit must also go to the institute. That's very important. And then what is the pendency in the high courts? What is the pendency in the Supreme Courts? Are we worse off than that? The answer is no. The answer is definitely not. But then probably we do not have the guts to actually counter it. I can tell you, when I was the president, in every platform where Mr. Salman Khurshid was present, who was the president, who was the Minister of MC at that particular point of time, I used to say that, sir, please, for God's sake, tell your judiciary, because he was a law minister also. I used to tell him that tell your judiciary that should not grant any stay in such matters where disciplinary proceedings are there, so that we can decide it immediately. After the disciplinary proceedings are over, let the person go to the court and get the stay of the order, stay against the order, rather than the stay against the proceedings. Because the moment the stay against the proceedings come, it is we who suffer as an institute, and we are being seen in a poor light. But nobody acted on that. And there are letters to that, basically, if you ask me. Now, after all these years, now this action against the firm has come in. Who recommended this? It was the institute who recommended it. It has taken them 11 years to decide on that. The government.
But sir, sorry interrupting you here, sir. 11 years. But how many times did we write reminders? How many times did we come out publicly to say?
Because I'm not party to that. I'm only party to
that. No, I'm a party to that for 6 years. I said go publicly, write 5 reminders and go publicly to say, well, MC is not acting. We don't do that because, you know, we have self-interest at times, not always. That's the problem. You know, the self-interest overtakes us, and that is why these are not being refuted even today. I mean, as blunt as possible.
Yeah. So anyway, I think there are questions by Shashikant Barve. He has talked about NFRA. I can only tell him that this point of chartered accountants not being there on NFRA, particularly on the disciplinary, has already been taken up, both by the institute and by people in the personal capacities before the government. It is not that it has not been taken up. Now the government may not take it up for any reasons, whatever. I don't want to say. Even in one of the meetings of NFRA, I have taken up the same issue, very frankly. And before MCA also, we have taken it up at a personal level, and as a member of part-time member of NFRA, for that matter, we have taken up certain issues so far as that issue is concerned. And he says that if the objective is 2 terms on the council, why it's 3rd term? I think we have to be very clear, Mr. Barve. 2 terms are from the next term. Now the people who have been elected on the basis of the 3-term concept. You can't just throw them out right now and say that you are only there for 2 terms. After all, this law will apply prospectively. It cannot apply retrospectively. After all, the elections took place based upon certain procedures, on certain parameters, and the parameterization was that the person can be contest 3 elections for that matter. Now the beauty will be that there will be certain transitional provisions, and in the transitional provision it can be there, and I have been one of the beneficiaries of those transitional provisions. When at that time also it was said that the members can contest only 3 terms, but since I had already contested the 4 terms, so in the transit they said that whatever were the terms earlier, these may not be counted for the full. So 1 term was allowed to, and in that term, probably one had the luck to become the president even for that matter. So there are certain transitional provisions which are there. Nobody can actually influence the government so far as those transitional provisions are concerned. Now it may be possible, I'm not saying that it is going to be possible, that due to transitional provisions, some of the members may be able to get another term also in the next term. I'm not on the negative side, nor on the positive side of it. Whatever the government decides, it's fine so far as I'm concerned. So far as the Archana Moge is concerned, she has asked the question, peer review is a great tool. Yes, there is absolutely no doubt about it. I can tell you now, earlier peer reviewers were not subjected to some kind of scrutiny. Now even the peer reviewers are subjected to a scrutiny. Now their working papers are also being asked for by the peer review board. I think this is the best thing that could have happened. Earlier, because of the peer review, no other action could have been possible. But now, if the peer reviewer report something negative, certain other actions are also possible. Earlier, through the FRRB was considered to be a sort of a body which will only look at it, do the code review thereof, and will not do any action. But then we said nothing doing. We cannot go to the world at large and say that FRRB has reported certain real adverse features in the report and will not take action against the members. So now even the action against the members is taken because of the FRRB for that matter. So all those things are, I can say, when I joined the council in 1998, compared to that today, some of the aspects have improved tremendously, but some of the aspects have not improved, and rather some of the aspects have deteriorated. That's also a factual position to be in. But saying that we have not moved on, we have also moved on. It's not that we have not moved on. I think the accounting standards, the IFRS for that particular matter in the shape of India's talk of standards on auditing becoming mandatory, all those things have happened. Peer review has also come in. Peer review has evolved over a period of time. FRRB, I was the first chairman under Mr. Chandak's presidentship for that matter. Now it has evolved over a period of time. Now FRRB also picks up the cases based on their own selection, maybe top 100 companies or top 50 companies or whatever complaints come from the SEBI or any other regulator. We are actually taking up those also. So the things have improved. I'm not saying, but probably the pace could have been much better. That's very important. And one of the things that I can say is that this period of 1 year for the presidentship is doing no good. Period of presidentship has to be more than 1 year, because 1 year is too short a period for a person to keep on implementing, because by the time he starts looking at it, gets the things approved and then gets into the implementation mode, by that time he's already out. And the next president may feel that probably the wisdom of the other person was not the right wisdom. That is why I said it should be council driven. It should not be president driven. That is the reason.
One important point by you now, Mr. Chopra, is about this president's term. We have also felt earlier, many people, it could be 3 years or 5 years, or possibly now 4 years with the new 4 years term. But has any effort been made along with the government to have a 4 years term?
No, not on this, sir. Very frankly, I will concede this particular point to you, because what happens is that the 32 elected members are there. And out of the 32, if you are going to limit the number of terms to 2, then only 2 of the persons, if you say 4 years, only 2 of the persons will be able to become the president. So what happens to the other 30%? So all those things will have to be considered. I think 2 years term would have been ideal, with probably 3 terms of 3 years each, or maybe 4 terms of 3 years each would have been ideal. 6 of those people would have become the president. And very frankly, at one particular point of time, I think Sanjiv knows it. In 10-11, I had suggested that we can have 4 vice presidents and 1 president. And each vice president taking care of different area. 1 vice president should take care of the technical side of it, which is accounting and auditing standards. 1 may take administration, 1 may take board of studies, and 1 may take IT, etc. The next year, the contest will not be, the vice president will not be automatically promoted to the presidentship. Out of these 4, 1 of the persons will be elected as the president, very frankly. And then you elect another person as a vice president. So there could be 4 vice presidents, and the person has the satisfaction of at least becoming the vice president of the institute and being able to contribute to some of the areas. But then it was not agreed to by the council. So I have no regrets on that. Whatever I thought fit that could be beneficial to the institute, I suggested. People did not agree. That's a matter of their own wisdom. So I have no regrets on that. But I thought that if 4 vice presidents are there, next year there is going to be a contest amongst those 4 people, it could have been much better, very frankly. But as I say that it's always the collective wisdom which should matter rather than the individual wisdom.
Sir, I would like you
Sir,
to...
one more point.
Yeah.
Manoj, please, can you?
Umesh,
Sir, this
Yeah.
is regarding the amendment, ICAI amendment bill.
wait. Umesh,
Yeah.
please wait. Let
Yeah,
me complete this.
Yeah.
Mr. Chopra would
Yeah,
like to
Umesh.
continue working on the suggestion you gave, and see it is implemented hopefully soon. Your suggestions are very important. The way, one president for maybe 4 years, 5 years, and also functional leadership, so that the post it should not be lucrative. It should be the contribution and willingness to serve. And also related issue is a region like WRC. Our chairman possibly can have 3 years term. Now the state of WRC is such, everybody is having a big question mark on the capability and credibility of the guys who will fight for the second and third year in this term itself. So the earlier your suggestion is implemented, it is good. Kindly keep on working on it.
I will definitely keep on working. I'm not in the council box. Anyway,
Yeah.
I can say that. Yes, Umesh.
Yeah, sir, there is one important question as per ICAI amendment. You said, see, the president has conducted a meeting. Because I attended the president meeting, past president meeting, which is normally conducted once in a year after the president assumed the post in Mumbai. And there he said, we are having very cordial relation and they have been respected. The government officials are respecting us. Even we went to SEBI and so many places, and we have been received very, very well and respected very well. That was something was discussed on that meeting. And thereafter, this amendment bill came. Then the meeting was somewhere in 11th of normally March or somewhere it was been then. But now after the amendment bill, the meeting of past presidents was conducted on I think 5th or 6th of April. I know whether you are attended that or not. Can you throw some light on that? What was the thought process?
No, I attended it virtually. I didn't go there, very frankly.
Yeah.
I will only say that some of the presidents were very forthright, even in their views, even in that particular meeting. That's all I will like to say. And probably, you see, one thing I'm very clear in my life. If you want to improve the things, you have to call spade a spade. There has to be some unpleasant talk also. If you keep on talking goody all the time, the things cannot improve.
Sure.
And self-admiration is no admiration. It is not mutual admiration which should be there. See, but I can tell you that from the president's perspective, it was a good meeting that he had. But this meeting could have been held before the bill was passed, very frankly, because we knew about the bill. At that time, the suggestions of the presidents could have been taken, the past presidents could have been taken. But once the bill is already enacted, you can't do anything about it after that. So I will not like to go beyond this so far as that particular part is concerned. I think you can ask the present president or some other president from the Western region who has attended as to what do they feel about it. Because, but I can definitely tell you that there were certain suggestions which are very, very useful. It's that everything was goody. So certain suggestions were absolutely to the point. And there was some kind of self-introspection also. It's not that the self-introspection was missing. Certain people always force the self-introspection. I can tell you that.
Sir, do you feel there is a need of brand ambassador for ICAI to be made, somebody who will present the ICAI position and public at large or society at large to the government? I think we are missing somewhere, as you said. Can we create such post, maybe formally, informally, or whatever it may be? There should be brand ambassador.
That's for the council to decide. You see, anyone speaking about the brand ambassador, it may seem like as if he wants himself to be thrust upon somebody. It's for the council to decide, very frankly, because otherwise you will be seen as an outsider who is trying to be thrust upon the council. So I don't want to comment upon that, but definitely you require certain people, certain team of 4 or 5 members, I am not talking of one member, 4 or 5 members who can keep on interacting with the government on behalf of the institute. When the president goes, the president may keep on going. I have always believed in one thing. The post of the president should be only to create the PR with the various authorities. It should not be that. He should not be involved into day-to-day activity of the institute. He should be more involved into the PR activity of the institute, basically. And he should be meeting the people as to what the profession can do. I think that's very important. So it's for the people to take up. And I think there are people within the council who are very good. I can still say that. I have seen Sanjiv also working for that particular matter. So I have seen many people who have been absolutely fantastic, fabulous in this institute. But then every parliament is constituted of certain people who are good, who are mediocre, who may not be to your liking. But it's not personal liking of me or you which matters. It is the ultimately everyone gets selected with the support of the masses.
One important.
I really appreciate your openness. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
One important thing coming out, Elon Musk talked about free speech when he gave a 43 billion bid for Twitter. And the Twitter handle of the professional institute is very important. Why cannot it be used for appropriate PR and ambassador activities of the professional institute? Why should there should be like a hesitation in using that? It's a great opportunity. It can be really used for positive impact, which can reach out to the world, not only for clarifications or announcements, but also for that professionals are a champion for the India growth story, contributing globally. Your thoughts, Mr. Amarjit Chopra and Mr. Sanjiv Choudhry.
Manojji, I can only say that I belong to an old school thought, basically. Very frankly, I am now going to complete 70 in June. But there are certain younger members within the council who will be definitely doing it. There's no doubt about it. And I think that will augur well for the profession in the times to come. Twitter has to be used. Why not to use Twitter? I think the president should be using Twitter. If the prime minister of the country can use Twitter, every minister can use Twitter. Why the president or the vice president of the institute shouldn't use Twitter for that matter? Yeah, I think they should be using Twitter. And whatever are the positive developments of the profession, they should be able to convey it. And even if there are certain resentments, they should be able to convey it through the Twitter. Why not? I think that's very important.
Wonderful, wonderful. We look forward to this implementation. Today, the state of affairs of the institute is 25 industry members, senior vice presidents, presidents, board members. They want to discuss a 650-page RHP. This is a red herring prospectus of the LIC Ipo, 659 pages, even a chapter. They find it difficult to get place in the big building, 8-storied building. Conditions attached, how many votes, who will get? And the 21 members fight among ourselves, and one needs the independent space. This is the state of affairs. Welcome speech. It's all your institute of members. It's your building. There are 150 buildings, but today this is the state of affairs. Deep dive is essential for the India growth story, but how we can come together and take it forward. So I am glad, Mr. Amarjit Chopra, you are a voluntary ambassador of goodwill. That's more important. Ambassador of goodwill for the India growth story and for all the professional institutes in the world, not only one council. And I'm glad Sanjiv Choudhry is coming up and discussing issues, articulating issues. There are many more things one can contribute. Archana, you have questions on that?
Manojji, Shashikant Barveji has asked a particular question. That's with regard to what are the comments of the persons on creation of the IIA. Number one, And that is why I said that this is a prejudiced, biased state of mind of the parliamentarians as well as the bureaucrats. This was never a term of reference to the committee, standing committee. And the standing committee in its report says that one of the witnesses appeared and said it. How it can come before the parliament? A witness statement coming before the parliament. This is absolutely ridiculous. I think that is why I said that there has been a misinformation campaign against the institute. I think the past presidents are very clear on one thing, that the institute needs to tone up its own board of studies, its own curriculum, change it to meet the requirements of the industry, and make sure that even if they want to bring in IIA, let our member be as good as that of IIA. And what is going to happen, even if they set up an IIA institute for that matter, spending maybe 5,000 crore or whatever amount they have to spend, how many IIAs they will be able to create? How many accountants they will be able to generate out of it? We are 350,000 already, and every year we create more than 30,000 chartered accountants, maybe 35,000 chartered accountants. Even if they are able to create, they will not be able to create more than 500 to 1,000 to begin with. I think, and that if at all that has to happen, that will happen after 7 years for that matter. So I'm not too worried about it. But at the same time, we need to take it up with the concerned authorities. Why IIA? Why can't we? We have the existing infrastructure. We have the existing facilities. You let us know what kind of changes do you want. And these are the changes that we are suggesting you, which will be equivalent to the best of the curriculums. I think that is what we need to do it. And to counter that particular argument. And this is what everyone in the, amongst the past presidents was very, very clear so far as this particular part is concerned in the discussions in the past presidents meeting. So Manojji, at this particular stage, I will like to leave because I told you half an hour, but it is more than an hour and a quarter now.
And that's the confidence
Thank
we
you.
want. We can take on IIA. We can take on any institute in the world and working together and show we can do excellence. Of course, we had a long way to go, but learning is a part of continuing to grow. Every day is a day of learning. And thank you so much for wonderful insights. We'll continue the discussion, a deep dive as usual, and look forward to having you here regularly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amarjit Chopra ji, for such an interesting panel discussion, and you have almost answered all the questions posed by the participants. It was a great pleasure to have you here, and I would just like to appreciate the thought that self-admiration is no admiration. Actually, it will resonate.
It is no recommendation. I am very clear on it.
Yes.
You see, our problem is we keep on patting our back. Sure. That we are the greatest of the profession. It is for the public to say that we are the best of the profession. I think that's very important, and that image we have to create.
No, actually, it is a very important thought, and it resonates in every house. Sorry to bring a, in terms of domesticity, also domestic house. Also, I always tell my son that I criticize you so that everyone should appreciate you. Because. Just because I appreciate doesn't mean, the parents appreciate doesn't mean that the child is good. It should come from others. It should come from the public. Yeah.
Okay.
So
thank you.
I just love this thought. Yeah.
Thank you.
Amarjit. Thank you.
Thank you, Amarjit ji. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Sanjiv ji, you wanted to say something, I think.
Yeah, in fact, Amarjit is gone. I will talk to him again. But I think the point is, until and unless we bring transparency in the institute, I mean, we had the president's meeting, which we every year have. Why can't we have the minutes public or the summary of the minutes? Supposing the president says, "Don't put my name that I said this." I mean, what is the action taken? You had, you spent X amount of money. Fine, please do it. But what is the benefit out of the meeting? I'm always looking at, you do something. I used to, I had a CEO in my earlier firm who said, look, you should do this budget presentation. And I'm just digressing only for 30 seconds. He asked me, how was the budget presentation? And Nilanjan, I'm talking about Choudhry.
Yeah, I can relate to that, sir.
So I said, wow, very good budget presentation. He says, how many proposals? See, at the end of the day, as a firm, I'm looking at, have I sent 5 proposals? I may win 0. You see, he says, look, you must have targets to achieve. You miss them is fine. But if you don't have a target, what the hell will you do? Our institute, I mean, Mr. Amarjit Chopra has been a president. In my 6 years at the council, I mean, I've written a post also today. Hitesh had written something and Manoj also may have seen it. I used to ask, why did we start with the convocation? When did we start? What was the reason? No answers. You keep on asking the same question again and again, no answers. And at the time, you are hitting your head against the wall. The staff knows that he's answerable to the president because he's the boss. The secretary is useless. We don't take good secretaries because, we want a secretary who's run by the president. I mean, everyone talks about council-driven, but it is not council-driven. It is only president-driven. I mean, why should you have a president agenda for a year? Why should the next president look into what the earlier president did or not did? It should be the council. See, if I was the president and Archana, you were the vice president, and there was a council decision, if I was doing 5 things, you should carry on 5 things, I'll do 5. So when I go out, your successors will carry on with your 5 or my 5, and those things will be carried on. I can't say that whatever has gone is gone. Now this year we will do this. Crap. That is where the problem is. You see, we are here to please each other. I mean, just to add one point quickly, I can go on. Actually, I should write a book on how to win the election or lose the election. We buy infrastructure and we are very happy that we are 150 buildings or 140 buildings or whatever it is. I said, I think it was in my second year of the council, I said, list of the land and buildings which you have where there are disputes. I don't want a list where everything is fine. I mean, you have a building in Bombay, good, legally fine, everything is fine. Okay. I don't want that. I did not get that information for 2 years. It came out that in the central region, there is one building or one land which is in the name of the chairman of the branch at that time. Why? There are some places the land is being acquired. I think the council should be reported on those matters regularly as to where there are problems. I don't want to know where everything is fine. But you don't get that information. This officer knows if the information is not given, nothing will happen to him. And life goes on. It is very good to say that it should be council driven, but I haven't seen in my 6 years any president working towards it. I'm not talking about the past. I'm not talking about Amarjit ji. But I have seen 6 presidents, nobody worked towards making it council run. I was in the council for 6 years. I fought and fought and fought. I mean, at times I was the lone voice fighting, but I kept fighting. I said, look, at least I'll put forward my views. You like it or not is fine. I mean, I'm not here to please anybody else. And I have absolutely no worries about it and no regrets about it. I'm happy where I am. God has been kind. But there are ills which we need to address. I'm still optimistic. I'm still positive. I don't give up. But I'm not in the council. Some leaders which we elect, I hope they do things the right way. That's the hope, that's the wish, and that's the prayer. But good to be a part of it. Thank you very much, Manoj, for giving me the opportunity. I don't do much of audits. I'm more a tax person in the last 20 years. But on ethics, I've done a lot of work, being in the ISBA board. So it's a huge thing which is being done. We don't learn lessons. I will give one last example before I sign off. In the ISBA board, I do the appraisal of a chairman and the chairman does my appraisal after the year is over. It is recorded. Can I do it for my council? Should I not do it here? Bring best practices. Do an appraisal and say my president is useless. I have told the president sitting in the council table that you are useless, you are telling a lie. Be honest about it. But nobody would, say that. Have the courage of being honest. So I think we don't learn good practices. Either we learn or we forget about it. We don't want to implement it. Because, when you point one finger at someone, you're pointing 4 fingers at yourself. You don't realize that. Nobody wants to correct oneself. I think if each one of us start correcting ourselves, things will change. But we don't want to do that. I don't want to correct anybody else. I keep correcting myself. That's the best way of improving. But I hope for the benefit of all of us, we have better days ahead. I can only hope, wish and pray in a positive way.
Sanjiv, very well said on appraisal of the council. These is a land of the Mahatma. Truth and courage is very, very essential, and one man can do it. What doesn't just need one council of one professional body is in the world. It comes from the heart and conviction. You can do it. You can give 9 out of 10 rating to a past president like Mr. P.A. Nair, who rose from the post of a stenographer, and also give 0 out of 10 to some of the presidents in the last 5 years. 0 out of 10 or whatever, 10 out of 10, that depends on the bias or independence or courage. But it has to start from a professional and people of conviction and courage and integrity. Ethics is very, very important. That can not only solve some of the issues, which some challenging issues some people say, but can really take it forward. Today, everybody looks at India to lead, land of values. It can come a few years of people of lack of integrity or independence or taking people together. That should be seen as learnings.
Absolutely.
Ultimately, it is one Mughal emperor who made lots of mistakes. It made big changes. Yeah. It makes a difference, and people of character like you coming forward, we'll be having. You are a core team member of think tank. Keep contributing regularly on any issue. It's your platform. There is no invitation required.
Happy to do it, sir. Happy to do it.
Anybody can come forward and share any issues, of course, on the agenda for the conclave.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Doing
Sanjiv,
good work.
Sanjiv ji, Dushyant Shah here. Yeah, I am really thankful to you and Mr. Amarjit, because a lot of insight and good thoughts you have given. Now, couple of thoughts coming to my mind. Like when we talk about a lot of presidents, don't carry forward the work, which is started by the earlier president, and then they don't do much of good information sharing with the ministry and various other levels. So I think there needs to be some change in the working of the institute councils. And I think there has to be an unwritten law that whatever has been started by one president has to be completed. The next term, whoever comes as a president. And there are many complaints that, where a lot of questions are not being answered. So like when SEBI makes all the companies, give a periodical, report that so many investor complaints were received, so many were answered and all that, like that institute should be made to give such kind of, reporting maybe every quarter, that this many questions were raised by various council members or from the members. And these are the solutions given, these are answers given, these are the action taken. Some kind of a sharing and transparency, and ultimately the responsibility and commitment towards profession needs to come.
No, I'll just respond quickly on one point, Mr. Shah. A lot of people talk about the council meetings to be, available online for the members to view. I'll tell you, I was the first one to say we can do it, but I was the first one to say let's not do it. I'll tell you why. Whatever respect today you have for all of us as council members, we lose that respect in 30 seconds. We should not do it, because the meetings are not conducted the way they should be professionally done. Absolutely. I'll tell you, I go to the ISBA board, and the reason I'm talking about ISBA board is just sharing the good practices. I was given a paper on day one. If you come late for the meeting or if you leave early, it will be taken as if you're attending a half-day board meeting. If the meeting has to start at 8:30, at 8:25, we are sitting on our chairs with a cup of tea, because at 8:30, the chairman would ring the bell and say meeting starts.
Yes.
When in 2013, I went to the council, the 10 o'clock meeting will start at 12 o'clock. The 12 o'clock will start at 4 o'clock.
My God.
And after a year, it came out, I think second year, Raghu was the president. By then, it was known to everyone that if Sanjiv is in some meeting, he'll thrash the people. So at 11 o'clock, I will write sitting in the council room that I'm sitting here with two members. Are we having the meeting or not? is it something to be talked about? It is crap that I'm sharing with you guys, actually. Wasting your
Absolutely. It's a
time.
very sad story, set of, affairs like.
So this is where, when I went to the council, I don't know what I felt. I had a huge respect for the council from outside. That's what I'm saying. Don't beam the minutes. And then I said, okay, all the important decisions should be on the website in 24 hours. Be transparent now. What decisions have been taken?
Wonderful.
But you don't do that.
Minutes or maybe audio recording also till we move into the video recording.
To begin with, minutes should be good. At least they'll make them responsible.
Transparency.
There should be a time limit. Like say maybe in 10 days of the meeting, minutes should be out.
No, I said 24 hours, important minutes. How much time does it take, sir, to type out one paragraph of important minutes? How many important decisions we take in the council meeting? 10 decisions? There are 10 secretaries who can type those minutes, and 10 chairmen of the meetings can approve it and put it on the website. How much time does it take?
Sanjiv, great. You are setting
last point.
Great insight.
Only last point. We have talked about the code for the elected representative. And the last point I want to share is when I joined the ISBA board, I signed the code in 24 hours. I was given a code. This is applicable to you. Sign it or give your comments. If nothing, you want to give some comments. That's what happens actually when you go to the board. We have been languishing with the code in the institute for the last so many years. Why shouldn't it be made applicable on day one? No work will start of the council before you sign the code of ethics, which is applicable to you. And that should be more stricter than what is applicable to you and me as a common member.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
They have to lead from the front.
Correct.
Sorry, so Manoj, I stop here. I don't want to take more time.
Sanjiv, just stay with us. We would like to discuss a few core issues, but would like to have you. Nilanjan?
So Mr. Ramprasad is here. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Sanjiv. Sanjiv, sir. Very insightful, your comments. Such a pleasure. And,
No, we are colleagues now, so
absolutely.
Can you go over to a few slides on LIC embedded value?
Then I'll do that.
Ramprasad could also share some thoughts on CARO briefly. Embedded value. And I will tell you, this is a part, the core issue is coming from one of the chapters from this RHP of the biggest IPO of India, the biggest corporation, number 3 brand in the world in insurance globally, and one of the most valuable companies. It's a 659 pages. 659 pages deep dive. This deep dive has started since the day the draft RHP was filed. We have done detailed presentations of a couple of hours, slide by slide. Now pricing is out. So we will go into the valuation aspect. And then we come to a few issues on the latest CARO, which is there in the latest annual results.
Yeah. I think we can see the slide now.
Yeah, Vikram, you are also there with us? Nilanjan, can you read a few essence of the slide? Just the essence.
So, Manoj, I think the slide does talk about the value of new business, right? And it also talks about the margins. So if you would look at the new businesses, they have been growing consistently for quite some time. The value of the margin has also gone up, or rather it is moderated in that same level. And if I have to look at the other financial aspects, for example, the time value of financial options, right? They also kind of look on the positive side. Also on the value of businesses, right? So it has also, showing a very positive kind of uptake, right? So so Manoj, if you want to add something here.
Would the point is in the value of new business, LIC is a mature organization. And some of the new private sector companies like HDFC Life and ICICI Pro are growing at a much faster pace in terms of growth numbers. But the thing is, it's at a small base. So and private sector, technology, digital, addressing a lot of younger population. So that is expected. But still, LIC has retained market leadership in spite of tough competition. Today, 10 companies have come. Tomorrow, 20 other life insurance players will come, looking at the huge population with good capacity to pay, and in a fast track high growth mode, high growth economy. So new business, this road shows are going on for placement to anchors. Next week IPO is opening. So the company LIC Corporation has been saying it plans to introduce a lot of new products, non-par business, and focus on future profitability. You have a slide on embedded value also, some 5.
Yeah. It's
Yes, this is very vital. The insurance companies globally are valued on embedded value rather than on P ratios or book value. Embedded value is the valuation of the future premiums receivables also. So can you just briefly mention the metrics and the values?
So if you would look at the slide, I think they have talked about how the value or the embedded value of LIC has gone up, right, from March 20 to September 2021. And if you could see, we started with around 464 USD billion. Now it is expected to be around 5,396 billion. So that's a very huge jump in the context of the embedded value. Also on the net worth side, net worth has also improved significantly from 63 INR billion to 82 INR billion, right? So again, it's a good sign of capital adequacy. Again, the value of in-force business, which is basically the policies which are in force, they have also jumped tremendously from 892 INR billion to 5,134 INR billion. So if on a summary, the embedded value in, let's say, the USD billion has gone up from 12.87 billion to 72.64 US dollar billion. So overall, a very healthy sign.
And one should mention also here, embedded value takes into account future income and the growth. Lots of assumptions go into it. Actuaries do go deep into it. In fact, I had the communication with the actuary of the corporation also. And to mention here, besides this embedded value, it is about 5.odd lakhs crores. Some of the private sectors are valued in multiple of 2.5 to 3 times. So based on that, valuations would come to maybe in the range of 11 lakhs crores to 15 lakhs crores. And now that was a thought process of earlier pricing a couple of months back before the war going on, geopolitical issues. Then market became a little weaker. And today market is recovered, but of course issues, volatility are going on. The size of the IPO was brought down from 74,000 crores to 21,000 crores. So free float will be much less. And the pricing expectation was 2,000 odd rupees per share. Now it is coming down to in the range of, I think, 900 to 950 per share, with discounts to retail, discounts to policy holders, and almost valuation at a throwaway price for FIIs who are benefiting. It's an Indian corporation. Indian taxpayers have contributed. It's a loss to the Indian taxpayer and a big bonanza for the foreign institutions who get firm allotment at a valuation of just one-time embedded value. Not only that, we have to look at India as a $2.6 trillion GDP market, and market caps of companies of exchanges are valued in terms of multiple of GDP. And for a country like India, it often fluctuates in the range of maybe 1.2 to 2.5 times GDP. And that means a huge, and LIC is owning stakes of even 5%, 6%, 10%, and some of the largest listed corporations and companies in India. So investments of over 38 lakhs are growing rapidly. Returns of that come to LIC, and part of the returns are for policyholders, part of the returns are for equity shareholders, and valuation just a small multiple. It's a come down from the government. We wonder what is the reason for a deep dive in the pricing. Maybe unwarranted, maybe warranted for policyholders. They have contributed. Maybe warranted for the taxpayers, but FI is getting allotment which they can sell in a month's time and at a high profit. And also low floating stocks gives a chance of propensity of high manipulation. We have seen a company like DMart. It is not coming in FNO. Huge market cap among the top 3 retail player. Floating stock is less. So the P multiples are much, much higher than other retail companies. Everybody knows what happened to Future Retail and what's the valuation of DMart. There are many other like Trent and others, also Spencer's in the market, but low floating stocks can give a very high price. Such companies need to be in FNO also, so there is ample liquidity. So would this come in FNO? It takes time. Would it come at a time of listing? Would it come in the indices, Nifty, Sensex, MSCI? That's what people are looking forward to. But float needs to increase for participation in MSCI or indices. So float needs to be more. So possibly there could be a OFS or a FPO, follow-on public offer. But there are timelines for that. They can't come with a FPO in 3 months unless a special exemption is made if the market improves. But these are critical factors to look out for.
And Manoj, what I can also gather from the press on the pricing bit, right? I think the perspective which the government is taking that right now, let's at least have a start with the IPO process, and then maybe they will try to have a higher price for expected follow-on offers. So I think that's the path the government is currently following.
I think, there was a controversy earlier that they are coming out with a much higher valuation. And there was a lot of talk that the real value is around 1,000 only. So the share will be listing at a discount. So possibly, they are doing 2-3 things by reducing the value. One is that they are ensuring that the issue gets fully subscribed. Number 2, there is some value left for the investors, maybe FII, but also for the retail and other investors, because there is a 50% shares allotted to HNIs and corporates and retail and all that. And one more thing is that all the 6-8 months, whatever efforts they have done to promote the issue and to do all the preparations would have gone, would have been wasted if they would not have come out with this kind of a issue. So it's more like a test marketing, I would say.
Yes, correct.
Well, the test marketing has started quite a few months back when the investors told them they need a embedded value report. An embedded value report was prepared in a hurry. And this is in the RHP, this is called the MILLIMAN report. This is RHP for all. MILLIMAN report, everybody should read it. It's a part of the RHP. After page number 592, report talks about the assumptions and also the type of business, the policies, par, non-par. There are lots of different policies, endowment policies, annuity policies, group insurance, and LIC has very, very large market share and huge funds available, which are used for the benefit of the infrastructure sector, also long-term investments. ALM is very important because you have long-term policies, you have short-term policies, you have key man products, and you have policies mainly for tax purpose. So great insights. Anybody else on this valuation deep dive before we move over to the next deep dive insights on CARO. Sanjiv, some thoughts from you? Would you like to?
No, sir, I'm fine. I'm just listening. Thank you very much.
Sanjiv, we have a deep dive approach. You know, very few. We come to know not even 10 people read the RHP. It's so fine print and it is so complicated. Now SEBI is trying to make it simpler and simpler, but making more and more information. But in spite of making it simpler, it gets more and more complicated. 659 pages. And I'm just pointing out the MILLIMAN report. If one can read just the MILLIMAN report, which is high complex, but it is good for professionals like us who can really contribute to India growth story and also give advice to the stakeholders and there are great opportunities.
Absolutely.
Manojji, just one point. What is the advice to retail investors, the policy holders who have been given certain stake in the IPO? The valuation, what has been discussed, is it correct for them, or they can go for, because they are going to have some 17 or 15 or something shares for each policy holders? Is it a good buy for them?
Well, Umesh, there is a discount for them. I think 60 rupees per share, right?
Yes.
So they are having a discount compared to the QIP participation.
Yeah.
They are having more discount compared to retail participation also.
Yeah.
And, if one is looking at long term, certainly. For short term, there are lots of variables in the market. We have the geopolitical situation. We saw what happened last night on Dow. It coming down fluctuation of 2 to 3% overnight. So a lot of margin trades happen. So so short-term volatility is there, but if one looks at long-term investment, this is certainly one of the a great institution. And once more information comes out, regular half-yearly updates of embedded value they are talking about. So today, March embedded value is not available, and there will be a now focus on profitability. So if the management delivers on profitability, and also equity market, people are saying it could be a $5 to $10 trillion economy, $5 to $10 trillion economy in the next decade or longer. Just imagine the multiples possible, and ultimately more profitability will lead to not only growth, but also the multiples also improve. Today, we know the benchmark HDFC Life 0.7 times embedded value historic, and embedded values grow. So quite interesting. But as usual, always we say disclaimer, please read the RHP fully, read the risk factors, and always consult your advisor, whether banker or investment banker or your professional or tax consultant, and look at the opportunities. But demat accounts are increasing. So CDSL, NSDL are also benefiting, and government will definitely benefit because money is going to the government's hands. Money is not to LIC. Actually, there should have been IPO where LIC gets the funds also, but they are not getting even 10,000 crores. Hopefully, there should be a FPO where LIC also gets funds. The money goes into reserves, and also the actual net worth also goes up. Just imagine this money had gone into net worth. What the net worth would have improved? It would have improved the price of the share. Certainly, it would have been much more.
Manojji, we learn.
Manoj, that is true for any OFS. Like, OFS always takes money to the promoters, pocket. So that is any OFS.
Yeah, but there are certain large IPOs. Now there is a propensity to reserve at least maybe 30%, 50% for the company. So hopefully that best practice should have been done. It should not just to go to the improve the deficit for the government. But okay, government needs money, fine. But as Uday Kotak had said long back, LIC should get listed. Nobody knew it will get listed so soon. It is getting listed. That is quite interesting, and we will definitely cover it in the sessions ahead post listing when we get the anchor document. Can we go?
Manojji, Manoji, we have learned in our economics that RBI is the lender of last resort, but today we see the LIC is the lender of last resort to the government also. No?
Well, the government has a lot of last resorts, but it has not been using it today. We know we are talking about privatization of Concord, Shipping Corporation India, IDBI. Ultimately, whatever is the easiest resort. Today, government is doing whatever is easy. We wonder, BPCL, it was announced. Many were interested in also. Concord, it was announced. Shipping Corporation announced. Announcements are there. Ultimately, this is what has happened today. This is desperation. Desperation. When what is the logic of putting feelers in the market or 2,000 odd pricing? So this is a kind of mistake, and tomorrow one can always blame the media. Where is the resolution for that? So ultimately, it is roadshows, and this is a last resort and a desperate measure. Desperate measure. But when assets are available at desperation prices, some people consider it as opportunities. Read the RHP. These are just a few synopses, and read the risk factors, but don't miss the opportunity cost. Can we go on to the next topic, CARO?
Manoj, 1 minute. Nilanjan, if you can go to the previous slide.
Previous slide. Okay.
Yeah, and we are running behind time. Let us keep
the time.
Yeah,
Manoj, but it is important. Yeah, okay, we are talking about this embedded value. Now, this value, whatever has been given is as of September 30, right? 21?
Yeah. Latest.
Yeah. So that means that another 6 months business, whatever they have done, so the actual embedded value will be quite on a higher side. Why? Because if you see March 31, 2020 value and March 31, 2021 value, there is a huge increase. Similarly, 21 to March 22, again, there will be huge increase, that one has to consider, while, evaluating the issue. And my second point is, what about the valuation of the stocks which LIC is holding? I'm sure that the market value of the stocks shares will not have been considered at all. Nilanjan?
Dushyant, I think that will be unlikely, because ultimately, if you're talking about the expected value or the value of LIC as an entity, which is not as of today, but also futuristic, I think the valuations of the holdings of LIC would anyway be factored in, because
no, but because if you see the report, that the MILLIMAN report, if you see, they are talking about the valuation of the present business and the valuation of the new business. Okay, so they are not talking about anything about the investment and the present value of the investments.
So my take is that generally when you're talking about business, right, business is not only your revenue from your operations directly, but also your holdings. Let's say if I hold any mutual funds on shares or any particular stock, that is still my income, right? So I think that's what would be factored in, but it's a valid point. Maybe we can look at it.
Yeah, because it will be a huge point if in case this is not considered here in the valuation.
Sure.
Mr. Ramprasad, you are ready to share?
Yeah, I think I'm ready. I'm not sure whether I will. 1 second.
I would just mention while you share, the finance minister mentioned during the budget speech, and on the same day, when they talk about divestment targets, that the embedded value was not known at that point, and she had said embedded value will be known in 10 days. And embedded value was declared in 10 days based on that March. And now it was updated for September. And the management has said they would be updating for March. And hopefully, as we discussed, embedded value will grow. And hopefully it will reflect also the strength of the investments which LIC has done based on the assumptions which the actuary does, and which is also discussed in the embedded value report and the MILLIMAN report. Look at the MILLIMAN report deep dive and keep watching the suspicion levels and the response. Yeah. Now, Mr. Ramprasad, a few words about yourself. You got rich experience. And
thank you. I know we are at the fag end of this session. I hope I'm visible. My screen is also visible.
Yeah, we can see your screen, Ram. If you can just put the slideshow on, that will be better.
1 second. I put it. I'm saying share. Was it sharing? 1 second.
No, I think you have to just do slideshow. Just do slideshow.
Just the slideshow. Can I move it? Yeah, is it okay now? Is it moving?
And Mr. Ramprasad, mention a few words about your professional.
I'm a chartered accountant, 34 years now. I spent about 8 years in Big Four. I've had a mix of share also, and experience of CFO. Now, the last 5 years, practice of a mid-tier firm in Bangalore. So that's in short about a hardcore statutory auditor, and probably I will. My focus of this presentation is, as Amarjit ji rightly said.
Mr. Ramprasad, please start the slideshow. Click on the slideshow menu on top.
On the top, is it? 1 second.
Yeah, after home, you have insert, draw, design, animation, slideshow.
1 second.
Or otherwise, there is a button there at the bottom right.
In the bottom, yeah.
Yeah, right at the bottom also there is a button.
Yeah, bottom right after the sizing slider.
Okay.
Next icon.
Yeah, this one. Yeah, correct.
And this okay? This okay?
Yeah, this is okay.
Yeah, okay. So I'm probably I'll probably try to compress it ASAP the time constraint, but my focus is to link every single point of CARO to the fraud aspects. Because Amarjit rightly said, a very explosive session. I think that I always believe in two concepts: mind mapping, number one, and the cross linkages between one point of audit to another point of audit. Always still audit is an interlinked exercise. And most of the time, people, do it on a standalone basis without linking one with another, which is why most reports probably, are in whatever shape they are. So I think when it comes to fixed assets, I would tend to worry. My focus is more on fraud. I would tend to worry more on unreconciled differences for a very long period of time. Could there be any element of fraud there? Also, now that intangible assets we are expected to say, I would worry about, I would definitely look at the ownership and legal disputes and see any aspect to be seen. Is there any payment made to a related party for buying it out? Is there any to be written off, etc. from a perspective, and what impact it will have on the main report? Similarly, I think this title deeds in the company, it's a huge funds diversionary tactic, which, as Amarjit ji rightly said, has also impacted amounts running into crores. The impact, I would consider the impact both on class 11 and class 19, particularly, when it is still not named and you have a legal dispute and your main factory is there. I would tend to think that an auditor cannot ignore it when he is trying to report the going concern aspect. So as so my objective is to keep linking one with another, so that this class 19 is very onerous class. I am not very sure whether you haven't understood the significance of it, where we are trying to discuss the going concern aspect, where we are, and we have in our firm taken a position that we will write a couple of lines saying that we don't guarantee the future viability, nor are we going to give it future assurance, and get everything recorded by the board. So that's moving on to things like inventory. Again, discrepancies not reconciled, as we always see very standard things saying that reconciliations in progress and all. But I personally think the days of reconciliation in progress, all the things will be out. It has to be binary, yes or no. And if it is significant and the reasons not fully established, I would tend to think the auditor must definitely evaluate, class 11 reporting as well. Similarly, I think this is probably, I'm taking cue from whatever Mr. Amarjit mentioned, the discrepancy between the books and the bank records, really may warrant a full-blown investigative work. And I would tend to think that the auditor has a big responsibility here. And if there are discrepancies, even 1 quarter or and it's all adjusted in the year end, I would tend to think that it would be better if the auditor mentioned that in the CARO, that there are discrepancies in the report. However, they've been rectified, and the auditor should keep those reconciliation work papers with him, so that he's able to NFRA or peer review or institute at a later point in time. So I would tend to think, I'm pausing for a moment here. I would also like to mention that the working papers be very, very thorough for each of these 21 classes. There are about 47 subjects. And I'm imagining what would have been our plight had original 84 come into being. So this is something very significant. In each class, probably the sort of work papers has to be detailed, not a mere yes or no, not merely done. You cannot simply say I've done something without attaching an evidence that a thing has been done. Moving on to this investment, loans, guarantees, etc. And I would tend to think the ability to lend. Do you have the ability to lend in the first place? I would question that as an auditor, and I would like to get the proprietary aspect there. Similarly, I would also like to see the financial standing of the borrower, and then see, have they all been considered before we make any lending, which is probably the cause of the NPAs that we are seeing, the 8 lakh crores, etc. Primarily, I feel we have not answered, we have not asked the basic questions. So CARO 2020 now forces you to ask all those things, and it's like terms and restrictive covenants. Cost of funds were terms. I borrow at a very high cost, or I borrow terms which are unfavorable to me, but I lend it at favorable terms, which earlier were never reported upon. All those things now should be reported. And I would think that in case you have it out, and you definitely would have to consider all those aspects in your going concern, particularly when you are assessing the liquidity of the company on class 19. What sort of assumptions the company has made? What is the repayment they're asking? Is there a strength from the borrower to repay the money during the prescribed times? I think I would tend to think that you cannot leave these classes to article trainees. If I were to give a cue to people, I would tend to think these classes must be done by a qualified chartered accountant. And any in-depth reviews must be done by the engagement partner, because all these things could be potential, any wrong reporting here could be potential disciplinary issues. And with the new bill coming, which has been enacted upon, I would really tend to think that 2 to 3 years from now, our position would be very, very. Similarly, overdue loans, the genuine of the steps taken, mere correspondence, visits, legal notices, the ability of the company to, look at the borrower's standing, what, etc., etc. All these things are now have to be seen more in depth, and proprietary aspects must be considered by us before we put our pen to paper on this CARO point. Similarly, fresh loans, renewals, guarantees, all these things, all routine classes, yearly reporting when we did articles and all, but now each of them require a much in-depth work, with class always being kept in mind about the fraud aspects. I would tend to think that when it comes to 185 and 186, particularly your limits, etc., entity level controls aspect must be seen. Similarly, statutory compliances, I would tend to think that if there are major disputes, which are there on that, what could be the impact it has on cash flows, what could be the material impact it has on your going concern ability, all these things should be considered. Earlier, we would have probably taken all these points in MRL, management representation, but now all these things are actually coming on the CARO report. So your work paper should be foolproof, should ensure that all these concerns are addressed. You can't have a 50 crore, penalty to be paid to the Pollution Control Board, and then you can't, factor that in your going concern assessment. That's not going to work. People will link this class with the 19, and they will definitely pick up in a peer review and say that, how did you link this class with 19? How are you comfortable that this will not impact your going concern? How will it not impact your cash flows, etc., etc. Similarly, when it comes to undisclosed income, I would tend to think management report and board minutes should be very critical documents. What are the reasons for the undisclosed income? We probably might have to think what exactly could be the impact of such things on my reporting. As far as fraud is concerned, I think these are the wider issues which need to be debated, and probably we need to really take a firm position on that. And probably the engagement quality review partner must be involved in sort of deliberations should such situations also come. And the point about this repayment of loan, I would tend to think the reasons for default. I've seen many, all of us are aware from the press, the sort of diversion of funds which has happened. Nothing for operations, but all money has flown out of the country, etc., etc. I think we have to definitely see the reasons for operational funds diversion. Similarly, funds diversion money other than stated purposes, in my view, is a very massive class 11 application be there fraud by the company. One would definitely look at it. Short term versus long term, the intent and the implications. If the company has got some a genuine working capital problem, as long term funds been used for it, I'm getting into debt trap. All these things must definitely be seen and looked at. Similarly, funds borrowed to meet the obligation of related party entities and terms and conditions, I would tend to think heightened level of professional skepticism would be required. And the money is raised from public. We are definitely I mean, I see a huge IPO season now, and SEBI has been very considerate in allowing us the other than statutory auditors to sign the registered accounts. So I think people see this as a business opportunity from a professional perspective. I would tend to think that it is a huge. I mean, we have to have a heightened level of skepticism before we are accepting any IPO related work, because when a reward is given, you can also be assured behind. So moving on, the reporting on fraud, I would tend to look at the completeness of list to be certified, minuted, taken on record. Similarly, I would like to look at the controls, the vigil mechanism to be steady, and this correlation with other business reporting and analyze any inconsistency would be something that I would definitely, as a signing part, be very, very cautious. Say something in class 3 saying on investments and then not analyze the fraud aspect and then that I have done a clean one. So the mind mapping has to be done by a professional today. Government has ensured that you sort of get it in your report itself. Similarly, related party transactions, I would tend to think the arm's length and the deep independent review, the evidences for it, the comparable prices for it, all these things would probably attract the attention of the stakeholder and answering the correlating to the working papers concept which Amarjit ji was mentioning. I would tend to think that if you are not having very detailed work paper as far as CARO is concerned, I would tend to think that our papers, when they are presented to chartered accountant who is going to be the presiding officer, I can only imagine what would be the consequences. I would tend to think the consequences will be very, very tough for any professional. So I think we have to approach not thinking of the report today. I would always worry 3 years from now, my report gets picked up, I'm ready with paper, and that working paper has to be contemporaneous and should be ready today. So I would like to probably give that sort of a linkage before I put my pen to the signing the report. Moving on to internal audit, I think 2 important points which is clear. There was only a comment on the system, but now the adequacy, the red flags in the internal audit to be considered for stat audit, and normally boards are looking at India action taken reports, but nobody follows up on the same. But if there are then probably we need to probably discuss on them. I just signed off a report where internal audit for second half the year was not available. We said that it is still in progress, and accordingly we are unable to comment and could not consider the same for stat audit purposes for the year, given that as a very factual reporting, so that that we are protected there. So that's probably something that we have to consider from a fraud perspective. And internal audit reports review, I would tend to think from 2 perspectives. One is the design deficiency and the operating effectiveness of failure, and the immediate corrective action that the company has taken, and what implication it will have on my ICFR report. So I would like to consider, because I can't have an internal audit report given to me with design deficiencies on points and action taken, and I don't take cognizance of it. My audit report is not possible. So that is something that we have to see. As far as non-cash transactions, the rationale and the non-linkage with the companies to be viewed with professional skepticism, and the resignation of stat audit is something which is auditing. Red flags mentioned, and the extended audit procedures of how we have covered ourselves should also be captured by us in our papers, so that there is no further reporting, and any reporting class 1 to be reviewed. I would tend to think that as far as going concern is concerned, I would corroborate with BOD minutes. I would review cash flows, corroborate evidence. particularly on the repayments, etc., I need to have very strong evidence to be correlated to other CARO classes. A major fraud, if there is anything, the impact it has on the cash flows, etc. And now that Satyam is public information, what comes now in public mind, which you noted, is that Satyam actually had a major cash flow problem 15 days before it fell off. And similarly, I would also tend to think that any fraud in subsidiaries, etc., would it have a major impact on my own going concern because I may not require the money or I may not be able to do transactions, etc. All those things must be studied in depth. And the last one would be on CSR. I would tend to think that all the projects need to be auditable, and government has a very strong mechanism and CSR space. And we are already seeing in public domain that some of the CSR spends or the related parties are for not in approved projects, etc. One must approach this with a high level of skepticism. So with this, Manoj ji, with the available time, I have covered all the classes. Happy to take any questions. Happy to share my thoughts. We'll be delighted. Yeah.
Great presentation, Ramprasad ji. We open the forum for questions, if any.
Anil?
Yeah, I would like to have a brief discussion with Ramprasad ji.
Anil, record yourself. So.
Can you? Yeah, I hope I am audible.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I am Anil Sharma. I represent JB Nagar think tank and have been actually into the direct tax practice for about 40 years. Now, my question comes actually the great presentation. Congratulations to the organizers. In fact, I thought I will spend some time, but I've stopped all my work and I'm attending it because all the great speakers who have contributed, Mr. Prasad and Sanjiv ji, Amarjit ji has given a great insight into the entire, all the changes that are happening in our profession. Now, coming to CARO and coming to the Schedule 3 requirements, they all appear to be like, what you say, so detailed and lengthy. Now, my concern comes, I am a SME practitioner basically. My people don't even have a proper team for accounting. Now, if some companies are not even able to take their stock properly. So now with all this law in place and all this CARO and Schedule 3 in place, I don't know how things will actually eventually see what is auditor supposed to do. You go to a doctor and doctor will prescribe you certain things. We do this. But every person has his own ground realities. He may not have the exact team to follow exactly what are prescribed. Now, how to deal with this situation? This is a typical for professionals as well. Prasadji, if you can throw some light on this and how to be practical on this.
Sir, I think two questions, two answers only, sir. One, training, sir. Extensive training on both essays and accounting standards, be it IGAP or INDES. I think that's the essential, number one. Number two would be detailed work papers, sir. On these fronts, honestly, we have no escape. Whether you are a SME or whether you are a Big Four, whether you are a mid-tier like us, I honestly believe that there is no escape. As I am talking to you, our office is open. We are having a training session from 11 to 2, followed by a lunch break and another from 3 to 5. So honestly, if you ask me, we cannot escape, training. Number one. Number two, to answer your question on Schedule 3, the sort of disclosures which are coming. Actually, in my view, audit is much more simplified because your questions can be much more straightforward. We have LIC, which is suspended for 3 years. All it takes is a discussion with the management. And if you are not convinced about the reply, you just put a qualification saying that we were unable to obtain corroborated evidence regarding carrying value of the CWA, whether any provision is required. So the opportunity for you to actually qualify a report, in my view, is much more than what it was earlier. Earlier, you had to debate, you had to discuss, you are afraid whether, you lose the client because of qualification, etc. I think in a way, I look at it as a big, blessing. It's much more straightforward. If the management refuses to give a provision entry for a receivable more than 5 years, which is going to be grouped under more than 3 years, and you are not going to have substantive appropriate audit evidence, we call it SAAE, I think you are well within your rights. If I saying that you are unable to comment on the carrying value of these balances and its impact on the going concern. So the 3 things: training, number 1, number 2, detailed work paper, number 3, proprietary aspects when you are going to finalize your audit report without the fear of losing your audit. I think this is very, very important, sir. And your clients may not like it. This is the pain, as Ms. Amarjit rightly mentioned. We have brought it upon ourselves. We have no choice but to do this to restore the stakeholders' confidence in our reports. And I honestly believe that if you don't have teams to do large audits and all, I would tend to think that it is highly risky to do that, given the heightened NFRA and heightened exposure with the new disciplinary committee which is going to be formed.
I agree with you. Thank you for your insight, sir.
Yes, and we all have to be very cognizant of a very important fact that our disciplinary committee is going to be headed by a non-chartered committee, which essentially means more than we speaking about true and fair auditing standards, etc. Our work paper should be such that, as mentioned in SA 200 itself, it should be self-explanatory. Instead of saying that another CA should understand it, we have to now recalibrate it and say that a non-CA should be in a position to understand the work paper. So that's layman style of approach must be easy.
I can just share a small, Manoj, if you give me 2 minutes.
Yeah.
I want to share an example with you. Like I have clients who are running corporates. Now, sometimes they tell me, okay, I am going to get my deposit back from some security deposit, all that, whether I have to pay tax on it. Now, see, with this type of background of the people, they do business, they earn money, they pay taxes, everything, but their basic understanding of the accounting is quite poor. So now they are like, to tell you in short, they pay taxes in crores of rupees, but they don't have this elementary and they don't have the team. Now, basically, when they come to us, our restriction, our limitations are that we also have a small team and limited time. So,
sir, you have gone on mute, sir. You have gone on mute.
Developed now. Hello.
Yes, sir. Now you are clear.
Yeah.
I agree, sir. I mean, it's going to be tough for the SME practitioners, but I think we have no choice but to respond.
Now, one thing more about stock. Why can't we be practical on this aspect? Because none of the organizations actually know what their real stocks are, to be very frank. Now, what approach we adopt is, we reconcile through our mechanism, some Excel sheets and all that, and we work out with the reasonable factor, and this is correct. But speaking the truth, I myself, when I go to take some stocks, I do find many, like, they don't tally and all those things do happen. Now, do you mean that we are supposed to even now the bank, they give the stock, bank wants, SOS basis. So they also do the same exercise what we do, and they give the stock to the bank. Now, when we finalize, when the books are being finalized, by that time things will be different. Now, I believe we have to report this also.
Yes, sir, you have to report because you have no choice. Otherwise, we will be in soup as a professional accountant.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Manoj, for your time. And I believe, CARO, we should have more and more sessions because by the time we are going to conclude this first audit under the new environment, I will request Manoj to have learned speakers like Ramprasad ji and Amarjit ji and few others who can help us to equip ourselves. Considering MSM practitioners have a big issue. So please, what can be done, please let us know. Thank you so much.
Certainly, Mr. Ramprasad will take factual balance sheets as and when they roll out. And
I will be more than happy to. I'll be more than happy to share piece of learning and learn more from this forum. It's not a problem. Help our fellow professionals in SME.
Nilanjan, some thoughts from you before we close.
So so I'll be quick. So
issue, CARO or Parliamentary bill.
Sure.
Any issue who has not contributed, and can do, and then we can just wind up as soon as possible.
Yeah. So I think Ram in his presentation also talked about, we looking at the proprietary aspects. I see, again, my personal take is that we are engaged as an auditor. We are not here to challenge the decisions or judgment of the management. But yes, the implications of those judgments, if they have been properly recorded and recognized, that is where our job is, right? So I think I felt some apprehensions when Anilji also spoke on the questioning or on the veracity of work that we would need to do. What I would like to put my perspective is that it is not that we are not supposed to do an audit. We are still supposed to do an audit because we are an auditor. We're not an investigator in that sense, right? But yes, we need to have those procedures and mechanisms in place so as to we meet the expectations of the regulator. Now, the expectation of the regulator is not that you just give one line to say that everything is fine. They want to know that how do you reach that decision? How have you concluded that yes, everything is good, right? Is there something that as a regulator I should be aware? So I think from that breadth, I do agree what Ram was saying, that we would need to be more skeptically sound, right? But yes, to say that I would look at proprietary, that I felt is not.
I agree with you.
What is the?
No, absolutely, Nilanjan. I think point very well taken. I think when we have a clinching evidence, or you are right, particularly, I would tend to worry about little proprietary aspects when my entity level is not in place. There, I think probably we'll have to really put a heightened level of skepticism.
Exactly.
I'm absolutely in sync with your thoughts. Definitely, our objective is not to put a business decision, but the outcome of those business decisions, the impact on the business is something that we are. That extent is, I totally agree with you. That is why ELC becomes very important. And probably Manojji will be very happy to do one session on entity level controls, so that it will also throw light on how decisions are taken at board level, etc. What we need to do. Absolutely, well taken, Nilanjan.
And maybe on a related point, I think, and I wanted to have Amarjit's perspective as well. Now, the level of disclosure, what is expected in the financial statement. Let's say I have a financial statement of 10 pages. If I add those disclosures, I will be adding 5 more pages at least, right? Multiply that with number of companies that we have. So there will be humongous amount of data which the regulator will have. What I actually wanted to know that how will the regulatory mechanism will be looking at this? Now, earlier the question was that there was no data. Now there is data, right? Based on what was the need of the regulator. Now, what is the level of data mining the regulator will do? That's something probably we need to watch out for. And then that will also be a critical factor when we are planning and performing our audit procedures. Right?
My take on that would be that your AI algorithm will definitely run. They will use ML. They will pick up all the more than 3 years you can expect notices. And I would tend to think that wherever you are having this CWAP, intangible assets in dispute, all these things are going to be scrutinized by them. And I think our professional brothers should be very, very cautious. They should not look at it as a mere disclosure given by the management. But I would be more concerned if we don't do any audit around those disclosures. You are absolutely bang on target, Nilanjan, is very valid point. So our learning from this group is that when disclosures are good, we also have to ensure that we have done audit and ensure that we have work papers which back up those judgments.
I can add to your point here. Sharing from my experience of working with some large firms and not so large firms, the government of India today is engaging experts from the IT industry to mine the data.
Right.
So for the cases, which are in SFIO, so when they come and, take the information away, at times they don't know what to do with the information. When they have floppies and pen drives and information, they don't know how to mine it.
Exactly.
They have engaged professional firms who go into their offices. They're supposed to leave their laptops and mobile phones outside. Work with the government on a professional basis to analyze the data and give them inputs, which then they ask questions to the companies. Now, I can share it also that at the back end, this was told to me by Mr. Amitabh Kant 5 years back, or maybe 4 years back, I'm forgetting which year. He said, a time will come when you file one paper, one financials with one, say, ROC. At the back end, it can be looked at by any ministry. So your information which is on the system, you see, physically, pehle kya hota tha? You file an information with the income tax officer, the next table will not know what is the information.
Exactly.
Right? With the technology-driven things now, everyone has an access to their information. I mean, look at your 26 As today. It has everything, all information there. Your TDS, your investments, your transactions beyond a certain point, etc., etc. So I think it is not a cause of worry. It is a word of caution that we should work at to see.
Yeah.
People who do things not the right way will have bigger problems than the people who do things the right way. So the challenge will come for people who are not working rightly.
Right.
Some people like us who have nothing to hide didn't have a problem then, will not have a problem now.
Right.
But people who had to hide things, if at all, they will have a bigger challenge how to hide it anymore from, giving it to one and not giving it to the other. So the challenges have been posed by us also in the end. I mean, that's a short point. I thought I'd just respond because of my experience. I've dealt with some government agencies.
Right. No, Sanjiv, that is completely critical, because ultimately the level of information that is being available, if it is not being used by the ultimate user, then the entire purpose is lost.
No, they'll use it.
Yeah,
Absolutely, they'll use it well.
Yeah. I can also see Shashikant Badveji if he wants to add some perspective there as well.
See, how I look to this situation is, there have been talks earlier saying that why not move to self-certification of balance sheets or accounts for a certain size of companies and rely more on artificial intelligence and all technological developments. On the other hand, we are seeing there have been tremendous rise in the reporting requirements expected from the CAs. So how do you reconcile that? If the requirements are increasing on reporting, it means they want to rely on the reports. So then automatically you have good business, which will continue. On the other hand, there was a talk whether the business is likely to go away. So I think it's a good move. It will help the profession in the long run, because if the requirements are going.
So it's a question of time when the business will go down. I can tell you, so when I fought my first election in 2013 and I used to move to smaller places, I used to tell them, look, over a period of time, the bank audits will go down. Technology will overtake us, right? Now, so a time will come when, because of the technology, they'll have so much of information that they'll say, okay, let's exempt smaller assessees with no audit requirements. And let's try and do it for a couple of years. See what is the shortfall in the revenue information. They may do that. Because, sir, what is happening is that unfortunately, they are not getting much benefit from a large majority of us when we do the audit function. I mean, I can tell you, I have seen, sir, bank audit reports where even the instructions have been signed by some CAs and sent back to the central auditor. The branch auditor is not seeing even what he is signing. That percentage may be small. I'm not saying whether it is a large percentage, but there are members who are not doing their work properly. And there are members who are doing their work absolutely properly. But unfortunately, it is the bad apple which creates a problem. Perception actually goes with the bad thing, unfortunately.
As far as the other earlier subject was concerned about the Act, Amendment Act, now there are 2-3 points which I would like to make. The one point is, I think there is a big eyewash when we speak that now the power has been given to take action against the firms. Now, if we read the law, it says during last 5 years, if repeatedly the member is found guilty for misconduct, then only action can be taken. Now let us think: is it possible in practical life? Can the same member be held repeatedly guilty for misconduct? So it means virtually we are saying that on paper we are taking a right that we can take action against the firm, which is not enforceable at all in practical situations. That is one. The second most important, which Amarjit ji has replied already, but see, there are all the major companies, financial institutions, banks, mutual funds, cases relating to them go to NFRA. Now, if we see the latest or the present position of disciplinary cases, how they are decided at NFRA, then there are no chartered accountants involved. They are all government nominees who decide the disciplinary matters. So on one hand, we are saying here that why the non-chartered accountant should decide disciplinary cases, but cases of whom? You are getting cases of small companies or small entities which are not the limited companies, which are not banks, not institutions. So virtually 95% of the economy goes to NFRA, which is where the cases are being decided by non-chartered accountants. So I think it's a big eyewash when we say that we don't agree that non-chartered accountants should decide DC cases. We should have objected long back when NFRA is deciding cases, major cases like ILFS or Satyam. That is two. The third one is the short response to what Sanjiv ji had said about the live relay of meetings. See, on one hand, we are saying that the representatives are elected by the masses. So therefore, we have no control on that. The people who will get elected to the council will be elected by the masses, that general chartered accountants. Now, yes, if such are the leaders who are coming to the council due to majority votes, then let the majority know also what is their quality. Why we are afraid that, yes, by listening to the minutes, we will lose the respect. If you are electing such leaders, then let us know what they have been doing there. And if we lose the respect, then it's worth. I think let us lose the respect if that is the situation. Because you can have both the sides saying that we have no control on who will get elected. And then how can we say that they will not behave properly or represent properly and therefore respect will be gone? I think it's a conflicting situation. I believe that only the full transparency and live relay of all minutes of all the meetings will only bring certain sort of so-called or the position, and thereafter there may be likely some improvement in the leadership.
So I can respond only on the third point, sir. My competence on the first two I will restrain. It's just my thought, my view. In spite of the fact, sir, that we know some people are not good, they still get elected, right? The reason being that our polling percentage, at least in the north, is about 45%. So when I used to sit in the council, sir, I used to say, I represent a minority because majority hasn't even voted for me. We don't want to bring election reforms. We don't want to bring reforms because we are worried that people like Mr. Barve can vote from home. People like Mr. Barve will go and vote also, but some of your friends may not find it expedient to say, why should I go to 5 kilometers and waste my time, because ultimately an idiot will get elected and I'm wasting my time. So that's the perception. 3, we have not taken any steps to involve the industry to come and vote. A person who becomes a chartered accountant, joins the industry, has no relationship with the institute. We have never bothered, except there is a members industry committee which says of members in industry. They go to them because they want their votes in the end and they want to work from there actually. So I will come to Ashna because I know she works in ICAI, and if I have a good relationship with her, I'll get work from her. Right? Our problem is that we are so personal driven that we don't look at the larger good. Is my experience of 6 years in the council, unfortunately. So unless we bring in election reforms, 80% people voting, we'll have this happening time and again. I mean, if you think because of transparency, things may change, the council doesn't want it, sir. So by my saying and your saying that we should have it, majority of the people sitting there don't want that. Now look at, we have talked about this, the code for them. Yesterday was the meeting of the ESB. This was one of the agenda items. It is not taken up. I said, let's take that up as the first item of agenda. Why can't we do it? But the intent is not to do it. That's the problem. I mean, that's my experience, sir, limited. But, you realize this when you go in and you see how much of a fight it is to get. I mean, I've asked for when did the convocation start? What is the cost? Why are we doing it? What is the thought process of when we started with it? No answer. And I asked this question for a couple of years, banged my head. And how much can you remember beyond a point? You keep on asking, repeating. And then at times, if you're in minority, then you lose that steam or the fire beyond a point to keep repeating the same thing. So then people say, well, you had asked, now you'll get the information. The office knows that nothing will happen to them for not giving the information. The office knows that if they don't respond to the president, that's one person they need to respond to. That's the challenge. Anyway, I don't want to repeat this because that's a debate which may not take us anywhere. I don't want to take everyone's time here, but please go ahead.
Yeah.
Sanjiv.
Thank you, Sanjiv ji. Thank you, Nilanjan. Thank you, Ramprasad ji, for the engaging session and the great presentations. Thank you to all the participants for raising pertinent questions and making this a very lively discussion. With this, I think we can conclude our meeting. Nilanjan,
yeah.
I think we can conclude our meeting.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Archana. Thank you, Sanjiv, especially for your...
Subscribe to the YouTube channel. It has been posted by
Thank
Manoj.
you, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you, Manoj. Thank you, Archana.
Thank you, Ram.
Thank you, Nilanjan. Pleasure meeting you. Thank you.
Same here.
Bye, Ram.
Bye, sir. Bye.